Coming up this week on the Markcast, this is the pack your sandwich, buckle in, get ready to go. All your USFL stuff, CFL, everything coming your way. We are talking, I was proud of this, the USaaFxfL rules. We're talking the USFL rules again, because this time, by God, that's Sam Schwartzstein's music. Sam Schwartzstein, godfather, creator of the XFL Rulebook, is coming on to dissect all of the USFL rules.
Every rule is tied together. And so you can look at a rule and be like, this is a great idea, but if you don't have the players to execute it or the coaches to execute it, or it's going to screw up something and have unintended consequences down the road for other rules that might change the way you look at the game, that's why some rules didn't make it into our thing.
Then we have a legal update with friend of the show, IP and trademark lawyer out of Beverly Hills, Michael Cohen, talking about Fox Sports' response to the real USFL's amended complaint. Not looking good.
I know the judge is Judge Walters, and he's a very meticulous judge. And so, he will weigh everything carefully as he can, and probably give the parties an opportunity to be heard and do oral arguments. And then after that, may take some time.
Then we have longtime, four-time returning guest, friend of the show, Jim Mullin, coming back on. We're talking USFL, CFL, Edmonton, BC, anything in the world Jim wants to talk about.
I think it's one thing to, have a discussion about this for a couple of days. The way that story dragged out, I don't think it really helped the Canadian Football League. In my opinion, I think there's other things that we could have been talking about, rather than quite frankly, I think the four down discussion devalues the product.
And then we have a couple of player interviews. We have a little bit of a blast from the past. We have Greg Peach, former Edmonton, Hamilton, Winnipegger, and then
Hey, Bud Light Seltzer time.
Crack your Bud Light seltzers. We have Sergio Castillo of now the Edmonton Elks, Grey Cup winning champion with Winnipeg, coming on the show. Hope you guys enjoy. Hey guys, Reed here. Welcome to the Markcast. Thank you so much for stopping by tonight. Whoa, Nelly. Big show today. I hope you pack a sandwich. I hope you are ready for some juicy alt football content. I think in the ideal world, I think a 2-hour Markcast is probably all that anyone can handle. But you know what? This week we're rolling with it. Sam was available. Jim was available. Sometimes when you have the smartest people in the world, Michael Cohen. I mean, everybody's smart, but sometimes when everyone's available at the time, you got to make use of it. So we have 5 wonderful guests coming up for you on the show today. A little bit of housekeeping before we get into everything, and then we also have some other USFL news coming up. Just to plug the show again, in case you missed the promo off the top, we have Sam Schwartzstein, author of the XFL Rulebook, coming back on. Sam was traveling last week when the USFL Rulebook came out. Needless to say, he's got lots of things to say about the rules that are used, the pros, the cons. We try to keep it pretty lively. Remember, this is a pro USFL podcast. It's a pro USFL podcast, but it's good to get Sam's thoughts. What does he think about the extra points and the overtime, the clock management, those tweaks, the pass interference, defensive, all that kind of stuff. 45 minutes. If you wanted 45 minutes of the XFL Rulebook creator critiquing and dissecting the USFL Rulebook, we have that for you today. Michael Cohen, remember we had Tim Billick on a couple weeks ago. Michael Cohen, the OG IP and trademark lawyer, is coming on from Beverly Hills. Fox responded to the amended complaint of the real USFL lawsuit. Does not look good for our friends, Mr. Earhart and company. Really excited. I haven't talked to Michael as I recorded this part, so really excited to see what Michael has to say. Listener Seth and I posted a lot of our thoughts earlier this week when all of that came out, I guess on Monday, but I'm excited to see what, obviously a real professional, smart person has to say, a lawyer, about all that stuff. So we have Michael Cohen, Jim Mullin, President of Football Canada and Krown Gridiron Nation on TSN is coming on. I've been wanting to get Jim's thoughts on the USFL for a while, as someone that, obviously is an expert with all these leagues, decades plus, covering and being a part of all this, and obviously with his role as President of Football Canada. Also talking with Jim about the 4 down thing. I think Jim is very relieved, as we all are, that potentially the CFL, Randy Ambrosie came out and said that we are not going to 4 downs. This is a 3-down football league. So I'm sure that Jim is happy about that. We also have a couple player interviews. We have Greg Peach, a former Edmonton Eskimos, now Elks. He played for Hamilton. He played for Winnipeg. Greg is from Spokane, or living in Spokane now. He's from Vancouver, Washington, but I didn't realize that. So we lament a little bit over the Gonzaga loss, March sadness for us Zags fans, and kind of talk about players giving back to the league, building excitement with the youth, both in the States and in Canada with football and CFL football. Greg is great, talking with Edmonton and all that stuff, Winnipeg, trying to three-peat. And then really excited. You notice I have my Houston Roughnecks jersey on today. We have courtesy of now the Edmonton Elks, Sergio Castillo. Sergio, won the Grey Cup with Winnipeg last season. Sergio has played for the BC Lions. He's also most famously known online for chugging the Bud Light Seltzer after the Houston Roughnecks victory in the XFL.
Hey, Bud Light Seltzer time.
We talk about that. Sergio has a lot to say about the Bud Light stuff. God forbid everything else that he's accomplished in his career, but he has a lot to say about that. And then also some fun tidbits about that. So those are your 5 guests. Just a couple of house cleaning notes. I've mentioned before, the markcast.com/watch. If you want to watch the videos, the markcast.com/listen. If you want to listen, I'm doing a giveaway as well. I posted it on Twitter. We need some more podcast reviews. So if you go to the markcast.com/review and leave us a review, send me a DM. You can email me through the website, the markcastpodcast@gmail.com, or if you just go to the website. If you DM me a review, I'll either send you, we have new Markcast merch on our site, the markcast.com/merch, or I'll send you a USFL thing if that's really what you want. It doesn't matter to me. Our shirts and stuff are reasonably priced, but I'd certainly send you, Philadelphia Star shirt or hat or whatever. So if you leave us a podcast review, you can do Spotify through a desktop, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, I think, like Podchaser, there's kind of the mixture of those on there. But again, if you want some free, I'll raffle off one free, either USFL or Markcast merch that way. Last house cleaning bit. I started a couple different, the Twitter community now is a thing that exists. It's kind of like a Facebook group. I've started one called For the Love of Football, kind of going off the XFL tagline. We've also created one on Facebook, an actual Facebook group called For the Love of Football. Gary, the caricature artist, our devout listener that did my new avatar and has done lots of new avatars. He helped me come up with the banners for those. But if you want, more of the podcast feel, there's lots of great Facebook groups. Don't get me wrong. But, you're always getting like the don't post CFL stuff in the XFL group, or don't post XFL stuff in the CFL or whatever. I wanted to make one. I am the admin. So I am the one but I want there to be a full discussion, and you can post whatever you want. If you have your own podcast, feel free to post it in there and share. Obviously NFL stuff is going to permeate, but I would like it to be primarily, the alt football stuff. So you can go to The Love of Football either on Facebook or Twitter. I think Facebook is just like facebook.com/For the Love of Football. And then on Twitter, it's in the communities tab, which is new. But, we got like 50 members so far in each one. So, it's free, just something if you want to share and get some like-minded people. Mike Mitchell is already in the Twitter space and was already sharing that he's sharing either next week or the week after to be flexible, getting ready for that XFL news. So, if you're a part of that Twitter community, you already would have got that stuff from Mike. So we appreciate that. I will quit blabbing. Please enjoy our guest. Really hope you enjoy it. Thanks. Well, I could not be more thrilled for this. Busy traveling last week. We have you this week. I think we will have a lot of ears on this. We have Sam Schwartzstein on, creator of the XFL Rulebook. How are you doing?
Great. Happy to be on.
Exciting. Now we're going to get into this today. Sam and I, trepidatious waters. There's been a lot of stuff here, XFL and stealing and USFL and what's going on. I've heard podcasts all last week talking a lot about this. That is not what this is. We're going to look at the pros and cons of all of this stuff, look at maybe some good ideas the USFL had, maybe some things why the XFL did things. Does that sound good, Sam? We're going to try to look at this from like an analytic, and I told Sam, I said, I can't have any more heat on this. So we're going to talk about this, go through everything. First of all, Sam, what were your initial thoughts when all this came out?
Yeah, I think, there's nothing to do with intellectual property. No one owns any of the football rules. We had a lot of same rules in the NFL with the same size field, the same size everything. So no one owns the rules. So I think a lot of the stuff that they have borrowed from other leagues, I think has been great, right? We don't know what the current XFL rulebook will be like. And, we know what the 2020 rulebook was that I put together, but I think it's great to see that they're adding some stuff that makes the game exciting for fans. And that means they're listening to fans in some capacity. I think there's some unique things that they did that I actually don't know how it's going to be. I can't really form an opinion based on how I approach rules, is because I have to test and see, as well as I don't know what data they use to make their decisions. I know what data we use to make our decisions. Some of it may be outdated based on what the game looked like 4 years ago when we started in 2018. But I can't really form an opinion this is good or bad rule. I can only tell you why we looked at a rule or why we moved off a rule in a certain way.
It's exciting, yeah, because there was a lot, and I saw a lot of chatter online, like, they're picking and choosing, right? AAF stuff, like it was even some fan control football stuff in there. But then I also saw these rules worked, or these were good ideas, these were innovations. Like, why not, right? If nothing else is on the table right now, why not have the USFL adopt some of these things? If, like you said, we don't know what is happening next fall or next February, I guess we don't know, right?
Yeah, I think, for me, the way I looked at it is everything's attached to each other. So the way we looked at it is, if you have a certain type of player in your league, your rules should adapt to what kind of players you have. I can't go into specifics of that, but, if you have a lot of, if every rule is tied together. And so you can look at a rule and be like, this is a great idea, but if you don't have the players to execute it or the coaches to execute it, or it's going to screw up something and have unintended consequences down the road for other rules that might change the way you look at the game. That's why some rules didn't make it into our thing. There's a lot of great ideas up there. I hear a lot of great things that people can do. But if you don't account for how every rule ties together to make the overall game, you could have an issue. And that's why I prefer to test. I prefer to have as much data as possible to back my decisions, because at the end of the day, you're still not going to know what's going to happen on game day.
Well, good. So we're going to get into this. I think we're just going to kind of go rule by rule, I think. And just, like I said, what are the pros of these? What are the cons, the decisions that went into it? So the extra point, right? We had a lot of these announcements came out. Similar, I didn't want to tweet anything, but similar feeling announcement videos to what we saw in the XFL 2020, right?
Yeah, I hope Pilot, our design firm, got paid a little bit from that. But, if it worked for us, might as well try it again for them.
So we have the extra points, right? We have the 1 point successful kick, normal point after, 2 point conversion from the 2 yard line, and then 3 points from the 10-yard line.
Yeah. And so with the data, that little bit different from ours, we had the 2 point from the 5 and the 3 point from the 10. We wanted to make it so that if you had a scoring opportunity, the points really, really mattered. That's why we moved from the 2 to the 5, and we had the 1 point play from the 2. Your overall scoring will go down, and that's something that we accounted for. So, because you're making it harder to score. The main thing though was we didn't want to make the 1 point play too easy, like it is with the kick, right? So we really looked at where do we put a kick and what % chance to score do we want it. So we had the 1 point play at the 2, which is a 50% chance to score, much like their 2 point play. But for us, we wanted to get the kick out because fans cared more about the innovation and the strategy that come with the extra point, and they also think points should matter. It affects the game a little bit because your touchdown's not worth 6.9 points anymore like it is in the NFL, or I guess maybe in the USFL. It's worth about 6.7 points, 6.8 points. And so if more teams are successful from 3 points, that's how you can overcome that issue. And that's what we wanted to do, is to make sure that we had the 3 point play. That's a main driver, as well as the announcement video says, 9-point game is still a 1-score possession, and an 18-point game is still a 2-possession game. The likelihood that you score your 10-yard play is very low. So if you take a 17% chance times a 17% chance, your percent chance to actually come back, including the 2 touchdowns, is very low, but it's a great talking point. And it was my talking point as well. So I just, we wanted to get the kick out because we don't get to call plays as a league. And so I don't know how they're going to approach their coaches and say, hey, don't just kick the 1-point play every time. Why even have the 2-point play if teams are just going to go for the 1 point? And we know right now from data, you should go for 2 more from the 2-yard line. So now you're influencing the same type of play call, but you're not getting the excitement that fans can get of what should you choose. You should pretty much always choose the 1-point play or the 2-point play right now because they're so much easier to score than in the XFL.
No, like you said, it is a great talking point. It's that 3-point. This isn't like Kansas City, Buffalo, right? I mean, like we got these teams. We're going to be in like week 2 or 3 of the season here. Like, the chances of actually getting the 3-point, but it is a great talking point. It's great with the XFL. It stands out when you're like, what's different about the league? Well, you can go for 1, 2, or 3. Oh, cool. Okay, that's like something tangible I can hold on to. I don't know. We have friends with a lot of kickers, like removing the kicker from that. Like you said, you talked through a lot of the rationale, but did you ever have any trepidation about, I think I heard you on Alan and Bryant's show talking about that years ago, like removing the kicker, right? Taking away some of that?
Yeah, I guess, the fans, we did not remove the kicking game altogether. It is something we looked at, but fans want to see the offense and defense on the field, right? And they like I don't know what's going to happen next moment that comes post-touchdown. That's what we had. Everyone that we polled, we asked fans about this, and they told us they don't like the extra point kick. They called it a piss break, right? So it's a 94% chance conversion. They went from a 99% chance when they moved it from the 2 to the 15 to a 94% chance to make it. And so what also happens there is because it only happens 6% of the time, every miss is seen as a blunder. Right. And like blunders are bad for your game. And so if they have their first kicker go out there and they miss a 94% conversion, it's going to be deemed bad football. So for us, if you miss a play from the 5-yard line, that's not actually a blunder. So that's just you just trying to go for it and trying to do something unique. And we picked our locations based on percent chance to score, as well as what kind of play calls will we see. It's 50-50 run from the 2. It's 70-30 pass from the 10 or from the 5, and then it's 80-20 from the 10. And then we even picked the 15 at one point, but it didn't look like real football. It looked like picket fence defense. And so, all this stuff, we tested a bunch of it, and that's why it's good that the USFL put it in. I just don't know, based on the coaches they hired, how often they're going to do a 2- and a 3-point play. And so why even have it if your coaches aren't going to do it? We even saw that a lot of teams didn't go for 3 when they should have, or teams went for 1, even though a 1-point play was super inefficient in our game compared to the 2 and the 3. But so you don't know. So why have a rule if you likely may not use it? Because it's so easy to convert their 1-point play.
Well, it was like I think Zorn, right? Was it like he went for 3 and they're like he didn't even understand like what was going on. So the instant. So are we? I feel like we're good on extra points and all that.
Yeah.
Okay. Instant replay. I mean, it's a lot, right? Mike Pereira is the sky judge here. I mean, what's your takeaways from this? I mean, it feels like the NFL committee in New York, but just with only one challenge.
Yeah, we looked at sending everything back to Stanford and having me or Dean doing all the games. What we wanted to do is to make sure our game was as transparent as possible, right? I wanted it to not be anyone employed directly by the XFL that was doing the rules or doing the review. I cared more about integrity of the rules than being 100% right on what it is or having it be manipulation. We just wanted to get it as arm's distance away, and that's why we did all on-site review. It's more expensive. It's because you have to hire more people. You have to pay for it, Hawkeye, at every single game. I don't know what review system they're using. But we wanted to make sure that there was integrity, and then we were showing every decision making that goes involved with it, right? And they don't have concurrent games, so I think Mike can work all of it. I just think that for us, it made more sense to make it so that there was complete transparency over everything. And so that wasn't me making the call on everything, because I have my own KPIs aligned with the league, and you never want to have a conflict of interest.
It's interesting. That's when you got that triple headers on the Sundays, that's a long day for Mike Pereira to be doing
right.
For everybody. I've looked at even just, I don't do a lot of sports videography anymore, but I did sports in college and a lot of the Gonzaga games. Like, that's a horrendous day to be doing like a triple header out at the same field.
Yeah, those guys love it though. Dean does it for Fox as well. That's what they love to do. So I can see why they do it.
Thoughts on the one challenge flag?
We didn't have a challenge flag. There's no need for it, in my opinion. The way we did challenges is you could take a timeout. If you were on defense, it was only needed because every play was reviewed in our league. We did a very similar to college. And so you actually don't need a challenge flag if you're reviewing every play. The only time you need a challenge is if you're on defense and the other team on offense got a favorable spot and they want to go fast. The way we did it is we did a timeout, which would guarantee a review in time. And if there was an overturn on that review, then you got your timeout back, right? And we only did 2 timeouts. So, yeah, you have to save your timeouts. Don't just waste your timeouts. You also have to bet that we do a good job officiating. So, there's drawbacks to what we do too. But I think you don't really need the challenge flag. It shouldn't be up to a head coach to decide whether or not the ruling on the field is good. That's not their job. Could you imagine they have to be the face of the team, coach, leaders of the players, face to the media, and coach position, and then call plays, and then do a challenge flag? Fourth down, let's let the integrity of the game stand on the officiating side and make sure that we get it right versus focusing on adding another skill set to the coach.
That's good. I like that. This is good. People are going to be happy with all this stuff. Kickoffs, punts. I saw a lot being made of it being an XFL inspired kick. We say it's not that.
Yeah, I'm a little confused on their kickoff. It looks like they just moved the spot where you kick from back to the 25 and then got rid of the run up. I don't know what's it going to do. From my read, it's not similar to what we did at the XFL because there would be a lot more language associated to it. And did they have a video of the kickoff?
I was just going to say that. Of any of the ones that honestly, and I think we talked about this when I had Andrew on last week, we kind of broke all this down from USFL News Hub. Like, of any of the ones to have an animation for, this would have been incredibly helpful to see just because it is very hard. Because I saw that, like, oh, this is the XFL, they're kicking back. I'm like, it feels like they're just trying to make it, they have to kick further, but then it does feel like you might end up with a little bit more steam coming in. I don't know.
Right. As anyone who's kind of listened to me before, if you listened to the last time I was on the show, our kickoff was a really, really hard thing to do. And so I could see why if they haven't done any testing, I don't know if they've tested any rules or if they've played mock games, right? Before training camp, we played, I want to do halves. We probably played 30 mock halves, so, 16 games about. And so, we got to see what our game could look like. And we did change rules each time, but I don't know what this kickoff will do. If there's more returns, the game will go by a little bit faster, which they have other rules that slow the game down from a total of game time. I also don't know what their commercial load is going to be. So, between that, and they have partners in NBC. I don't know if Fox, because they own the league, will they broadcast a different time length and have different commercial load than NBC will. So it should be interesting. I know the kickoff, that if they have more returns, that's a lot what fans want, but I don't know what it'll do for player safety.
Yeah, I think we've been told the initial simulcast, I think it's just going to be the same on both, which I would have thought honestly would have been a cool opportunity to have different crews and be able to, or at least have different announcers, right? Like when WrestleMania does that and you have the Japanese booth and you have Amazon now, they'll have the female only or the international, but I do think they haven't announced. I reached out to a couple of the Spring League guys that called a lot of those games with Fox to see, and I just haven't heard back. Hey, do we know who's calling a lot of these games? But it does feel like I've heard that the load and the commercials and how the XFL tried to kind of balance it out versus this. Yeah,
and that was one of our hardest things because we had the hard cap then put into the contract. We had the 3-hour hard cap, and it was up to the the cruise, and that included the 4 minutes that we did the lead up time. So we kicked off at 04 or 34 for all of our games, or except for week 1, we kicked off at 06, right? So that was included in the overall game time of being under 3 hours. We were like we were like Seinfeld or a show like that's perfectly fit into the hour block based on the commercial load. So I don't know how that works for Fox and USFL because Fox owns the league, but they do have NBC. So it'll be interesting.
The next rule here I'm excited about, this onside kick versus scrimmage play, right? This is like AAF inspired. I said, this is the fan controlled football flip the field. Do you, just real fast, does fan controlled football equate in your life at all? And even?
Yeah, I love fan control football. I love the team they have. I helped a lot of friends get hired there. They hire a lot of my good buddies at the XFL. They have amazing people working there. I really love the Ferruti brothers that do a lot of the work with them. And I think that what they're doing is that true reimagination process. I think people have heard me say before, Vince said he was going to reimagine the game. He hired Oliver and I kind of came in and said, let's just re-engineer. And that's why I used my tech background of how we could adapt their rules. They're really reimagining the rule book, right? They're doing as many outlandish things you can do while still keeping the integrity of the game. And so, a few of the things that they did, I am pretty against the fourth down conversion as a use of the onside kick. I think it allows for, we have the election to go for it and not go for it. I think that the AAF had a rule you had to be down by 2 scores or something at a certain time in the game for when you could do the 4th and 12, right? If you have a really outmatched team, team's up by 2 scores, and they're really outmatched offensively, that team can then technically go for it and convert more because now their main thing that they practice during the week, they can utilize it. So I didn't want to see the unintended consequences. Also, as a former offensive lineman, you're on the field for a 12-play drive. You then go for 2 to get back into the game. You convert, and now you have to do a 4th and 12. What happens when you convert that 4th and 12? You have to restart a drive. You never left the inside of the lines. And that, to me, is a big problem because it's a health and safety hazard. At no point do you ever do 35 straight plays, right? And I could not imagine. And the AAF, fortunate for us, the AAF actually they had a game, and they had players do 35 straight plays, not one of their games, one of their preseasons, and I got to see firsthand that the O-line was really struggling on that. And it looked like a player safety issue. But everyone who's played O-line knows that a field goal, extra point type try, we weren't going to have those, is not the same type of play as you have on a regular play. But then you add the 4th and 12 in, and if you convert it, it's like, what are we doing here, man? And you're playing up tempo the whole time. And that's why I didn't like it, because I wanted the O-line to be able to get off the field, get some water, get that breather before then ending up having to go back out there and do it all over again.
Well, and also, there's not, like you said, with the AAF having, that was kind of pre-read a lot of this nonsense. But, even in fan control football, the first time they did this, it's like you could do it whenever. And then it was one of those games, it was the game-breaking, I can't remember who the 2 teams were, but they kept going for it, and they kept going for it, and they kept going for it. And the other team never got the ball. And they finally had to say, well, you can only do it in like the second half when you're trailing. And they added some stipulations. And I said, well, I think in this league, right, in the USFL, when we have like professional coaches and play callers, like I don't think we're doing the scrimmage play every time. But when there's no limit to when you can do it, like you said, it does bring that player, the conditioning and safety and all that.
Yeah, I'm very anti-hard rules, right? And so I really don't like the word unless. That unless was in our rule book 74 times, but none of it was original copy from our team. Right? You can do this unless, you can do this unless, right? And that creates this stipulation rule, which really doesn't allow for creativity. Now, what we did do is at one point we had unlimited forward passes, right? And then we had a team in Mississippi that was doing razzle dazzle to run the clock out. We also had a completely running clock. So it was kind of a disaster. And so, okay, this is why we'll only allow for 1 forward pass, right? But we still allowed you to do it, and we didn't stipulate when in the game you could do it. We didn't put rules in like you could have had to go for it if you crossed the 50, because then there creates unintended consequences. I think the rules that have like hard stipulations like that about what you can do when makes the game less exciting and less open for the coaches to kind of make their own interpretations of the rule, right? And I just think it's hard to understand. I like onside kicks have come up because it's not a problem with safety. It's a problem with how they teach onside kick. It's up to 13% conversion rate this year in the NFL. You want it around 12%. That's why they chose 4th and 12. There's another alternative that you could do from a overall standpoint that's actually really cool is you can do the Shiano rule for post touchdowns. And the Shiano rule is it's a 4th and 15, 4th and 12, whatever you want to pick. And you can either punt for the kickoff or you can try and convert that 4th and 12. And so there's still that mystery of what's going on. It's something we toyed with, but we still liked the idea of a kickoff, and we were able to test out something that was great. But if we did not get something to work, we probably would have gone with the Shiano rule that allows for you to do the 4th and 12, but it still keeps the kickoff in it. It doesn't allow for a stipulation.
Gotcha. I'll skip ahead here because while you're talking double forward pass, I mean, them at USFL having the double forward pass.
Yeah, I guess it's cool. I love the rule. There's more stuff you can do from it that we got to see. We did a lot. What happens is the fly motion out of shotgun where you do the shovel pass forward is where we expected a lot of it to come from. And why we like that is it's a way to manufacture depth pre-snap versus what you see Julian Edelman do. He looks like he's at 7 yards depth. If I don't know how they get rid of their or get away with the double passes for the Patriots, but when he's 7 yards depth, the radio signal's got to go off. Something funky's happened. It's like when the wide receiver takes his glove off on the sideline, he comes back in. It's like something's happening. Please have your eyes on this guy. And so we wanted to eliminate that and also get rid of the risk. So you have risk involved when you do a double pass because it's a lateral so that you can lose possession. We wanted to make it so, hey, you don't have to lose possession anymore. It is a tighter confinement to get it taken care of because once you throw it, now he's closer to the line of scrimmage and the defense is closer to him. So there is a positive to having depth. But this way we made it so that it was very easy to execute if you wanted. Who knows how many games they're able to get a double forward pass in? Who knows? We had it in probably a quarter of our games, but they led to big plays and they led to 2-point conversions, 3-point conversions.
I couldn't believe when they announced all these rules and I posted the Landry Jones double forward pass where it got batted back. And I couldn't believe the engagement I got on that stupid video. I mean, people love it's fun. And again, like you need elevator points. Like what's with the USFL? You can go for 3, you can double forward pass. Like, okay. Like I get it. You know, it's something that it's tangible.
I did spend a lot of time on these rules though. And so it is great that they could just go and do them.
Yes. Speaking of the overtime here, so this is interesting because it's kind of like XFL meets CFL meets like what do you make of the best of 3 shootout?
Yeah, their overtime is awesome. It's definitely what we had discussed it. And Kurt Menefee had brought up moving the ball up more. It's where the 2-point conversion is. So we wanted the number to be 2-point conversion. So from the spread, we were actually concerned we weren't going to get enough scoring in our overtime from doing it from the 5. And then I liked going for 5 rounds because I didn't want it to be over in 2 rounds, right? It could be too fast. If the team A scores the first 2 and team B doesn't score, that it's over. So you now had 4 plays, right? And so that to me seems a little bit off. That's why I wanted to guarantee 6 plays because that's, everyone talks about, you get to drive with overtime in NFL and college football. And so I was like, you know what, let's do 5 rounds. Now the problem is that it is guaranteed to go longer. We were able to get it down to a minute per round. We tested every single version of this thing to make sure that we could get the right timing. We used to start the play from the end of the previous play at the other side of the field. But then for TV, they didn't like that. Officiating wasn't great that way because we were doing half line 4-on-4 officials. And so it's better to do it on the single side. It's probably better to do it from the 2. I don't know what kind of plays you're going to see, but you have a higher percent chance to score. It's 50% chance to score. So I just like the open field that you get from the 5. So the one thing you have to adjust for, and I don't know how they're handling penalties in a 2-point conversion shootout, is to make it show that because it's a single play possession, the defense doesn't cheat every play. You have to do some hardcore rules. So our first defensive penalty was a replay the down. Every defensive penalty after that was a free score for the team that was trying to convert, right? And so the problem is that you give one gimme call, like we're not going to screw you over a bad call, but now every call after that, whether if it's a controversial score, it's a complete score, right? And there's no rule in sport or in football where you're guaranteed a score based on when a score doesn't happen. If a guy gets PI'd in the end zone, the ball moves to the 1, right? It doesn't give the guy a free score. Only way you do that is if it's a clear path and the guy from like the sideline jumps onto the field or something like that, something egregious. But I just don't know if it's going to go too fast. But they are some positives of being able to score more in overtime.
Because it's for 2 points, is that a spread thing? Like why it's not just a single point? Okay.
So I talk to sports books all over. I talk to professional gamblers, and so I guess this is the long version. This is the last rule I was able to get approved by Vince, right? Because we couldn't get a consensus. So, how do you score overtime? Well, you look. I hope everyone kind of take from this is like the first thing you do when you're coming up with an idea is see what everyone else does. Don't think that it comes from you sitting down at a notepad with a pencil and you staring up in the air. Like there's no ideas that come out of thin air. You have to look at what other people do. So I looked at all my favorite overtimes. The ones that were successful from a fairness standpoint were the hockey shootout and the soccer free penalty kicks, which is the one I'm most familiar with. But it's a mini game. It's not actually football because it's 1-on-1. And so I said, okay, let's go to a little bit different route and let's try and see where we can have from 11-on-11, right? And then you have your NFL overtime and these things. The problem with college overtime is it's an unfair game because the team that goes second has an advantage, but also you have crazy overs that are coming into a play. So sports books need to do they account for that when they're doing spreads and overs and totals for overtime. So when you have an overtime and the teams are completely balanced, that's what it proves because there's 0 points for it. But then a team can win by 8 or win by 6. That's kind of messed up, right? And so what we wanted to do is we want to keep the spreads consistent with what the most obvious spreads are, what the spreads from the NFL were, which is an overtime spread. You technically can have a 1 or a 2 point spread, but it's really 1 point, 3 points and 6 points, right? And so that's why we wanted 2, 4, and 6. So it kept it the same pace, right? Or just 7 points they can also have. And so we wanted to keep it that same spread as well as not make it so scary for the totals. We looked at, hey, you just keep the score even and then add like a W and an L to whoever won or lost. So now when the spread's not involved and the over's not involved, and you bet on the full 9, or I guess it would be us, this full 60, much like soccer. Overseas is bet on the full 90. Overtime isn't included in their stuff in their sports betting markets. We thought about doing like hockey. Hockey just adds a goal to the winning team, right? We thought about what if we just added 1 point. A lot of my friends that are degenerate gamblers, that's what they wanted, right? Keep it consistent. Also, don't make my box score look weird, right? Don't add letters to my box score. And so I think that where we settled on, I think was the right play because we did our 2 point conversion and it settled in the most spots because we didn't want to do the 1 point conversion from the 2, largely because I wanted to see more unique plays. Let's see some action. Let's see some passing. Let's see like what teams can do and open it up. But yeah, that's my speech on tier. Again, I worked very hard on that and thought a lot on that.
So just to recap then, you think that going from the 5 in overtime versus the 2, you maybe get a little more open field?
I think you get a little bit more open field. I think that you get a little bit more unique plays. It was where our 2 point conversion was, so that's why we went from there and it fit the spread better. I think that there are positives of doing it from the 2-yard line in terms of increasing more scoring. What we didn't want to happen was to go 10 rounds and only have 3 touchdowns scored, which is statistically what you should expect, right? Or 3 2-point conversion scored. So that to me is a fear that you could have versus if they're 50-50, if they do 6 plays, they should have a winner after 3 rounds because that's, 3 touchdowns. So if in 6 plays they can get the same amount of score, they can expect the same amount of scores as we had in 10 plays. So there is a positive to what they're doing. I just thought it was better to do it from the 5 because that's where our 2 point conversion was and it was more open.
The punting, I need to have Matt Mango back on to like talk me through the logistics of this punting stuff. Anything stand out from the changes they made to the punting game?
Nothing that would be something to comment on. Their touchback's still the same as what the NFL is, and so they're still going to see the same amount of punts. I don't think it makes it any harder to punt, which is what our goal was, to showcase the punters may not have liked the rules, but I was showcasing them in the most in the hardest light. So if they perform well in our league, they can perform well anywhere. That's my sales pitch. But I think it's just you'll see the same amount of punts or more in the USFL.
So then timing, it's similar. We got this comeback period, but it's clock stopping for first downs inside the 2 minutes of the second and fourth quarters.
Yeah, I mean, there's positives to that. I liked our rule. It was a really confusing rule, but it was engineered for the purpose of, if fans care less about the rule and know that any team can come back, and the game ends at 1 minute left in the game, that's positive. So, we had 2 timeouts because we wanted less stoppages, like complete stoppages of the game. So that's why we had more stoppages in our 2 minute warning. So for fans who don't know, we stopped the game clock for 12 seconds on every play that ended in the field of play. Incompletions out of bounds or complete stoppages inside the 2 minute warning. And not the 5 minute, like the NFL has 5 minutes where they change their rules. Why we did this was to increase the opportunity for the team that's trailing to come back and make it harder for the team that's closing the game out, as well as open up the entire playbook, right? And so while Dallas Cowboys situation this past year, Dak Prescott goes and slides 14 yards down the field, both our rule and the USFL rule would have solved this problem, because now the clock stops, right? And so why do you do that? Now go back and watch that play, and you'll see guys like Fred Warner on the Niners standing on the sideline with their back to the sideline facing it, because you expect the only play to be a play to the sideline based on how much time is left. So we wanted to make it so that you offense could run every play in the playbook, and it looked like real football. And we can solve these end game scenarios. There's another rule you can do with CFL does, which is you have the CFL, they have this really fast game, and then they stop after every play in 2 minutes, or their 3 minute warning. And so it's unique because now it's always come back. And they also have a rule where you have to run a play at 0-0. So you're guaranteed to get that second play, and so the NFL has these different rules, or there's a lot of different ways you can solve this end game scenario. With 3 timeouts and this extra stoppage at the end of the game, and if you have a good game, both teams are going to utilize it. So if it's a 1-score game and the team that's trailing with 2 minutes left scores with 1:30 left, then the other team that gets the ball, they're trailing, and if they go, then they're going to try and make the game last as long as possible. And so you can get into it's a great game, but it makes the game go much, much longer in this situation. By not having a stoppage after every play, it's not as fast as what we did. I don't know what their play clock is, so I don't know what their kneel-down period is. For people who don't understand, kneel-down period, there's 40-second play clock at 2 minutes left in the game with no timeouts. The game's over, right? And so we did that. We had it at our 25-second play clock. We waited 5 seconds to run off the clock, 7 seconds to spot the ball. Kneel down. Now it's 20 seconds on play clock. So the kneel down period's at 1 minute left, right? We still wanted the kneel down period because I think it's a good way to get out of games that are out of hand. But, because then it's like almost 1 minute of game time is 3 minutes of real time. So for all the people watching out there, now you can impress your friends of, hey, how much, or your wife or girlfriend or boyfriend, however much time is left in the game. They ask you that, just take what's left in the game and times it by 3. Know that the last 2 minutes of the second half goes the slowest. And if it's a close game, the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter will be the slowest. So now you get to look impressive for your friends.
It's so funny. You were talking about the XFL comeback, and I remember because we were was it Dragons Vipers was at their home opener, and I think the Dragons were up and the Vipers were driving, and it was like, and there was a lot of alcohol that was involved. But we're like, is this game ever going to end? Like, it just felt like they kept getting, but then the game ended with, I think it was a missed pass in the end zone by the Vipers, and I'm like, that's why they did it, is because the game was exciting to the very last second. And every play mattered until the end, and it literally, I think, ended like right at the buzzer with, if my memory serves.
And again, at the start, I said every rule's tied together. So you combine those comeback mechanics with the 3-point play, that makes the game more exciting, right? And so now you have two comeback mechanics. You think it's just one piece of the puzzle. You have all the different pieces of the puzzle to be able to make sure that the rules tie together.
There you go. Last thing on here, because we did all the other offensive 2S. So this penalty stuff, right? And I'm sure you have thoughts that we have the offensive and defensive pass interference.
Yeah, those were rules I did not want to touch because I don't know what the unintended consequences are, right? I think what we don't want is more subjectivity in officiating. I think everyone can agree on that. And people don't like that there's the play where, you throw it up and it's a jump ball and it's automatically PI, because what are you supposed to do? Well, I don't know if you get rid of the PI, how teams are going to play. Why you do the intentional or why you do the PI as a spot foul is because after 15 yards on a route, the defense is now incentivized to commit a penalty, right? Because you're saying that the max they can get this. So now you add the subjectivity clause and let Mike Pereira make every call based on what's subjective. I don't know if we want to spend all this time doing more reviews on more of these calls. Not every play is going to be as egregious as the one that we all point to of the Saints-Rams NFC Championship game where the Rams player made no intention of getting the hit. So we saw that there was an unintended consequence with that. So we did in the last 5 minutes of the game where we allowed every play to be reviewed or every penalty to be reviewed so that you could account for that when a team doesn't have a chance to make up for a bad call, because over time, most teams will have all the same number of bad calls and good calls for them because we play a human game and this isn't chess, right? It's not robots. So, we're trying, you're trying to do it. I just don't know how our defense is going to play. You're going to see more press coverage because you're influencing more pass interference opportunities, right? To put it on the officiating staff. So I don't know what you're going to see. So I decided not to touch it. I think another defensive rule that they don't have is they don't have, from what I can tell, blitz rules, which the AAF did have and we didn't have. So a lot of startup football coaches will ask for blitz rules. They have unintended consequences. I'm not going to go directly into why you do them or don't them, because people pay me for that now. So I don't think that it's what your decisions are for those things. But I think it's important to figure out if you change a rule, how is this going to affect the second, third, fourth order effects that come with it?
Yeah, it's a butterfly effect. Ashton Kutcher taught us that many years ago.
Many years ago.
So any other thing? So the spot foul, I get that. Like you said, you're incentivizing. I think that's interesting. Incentivizing, post, 15 yards on the offensive pass interference. Basically, if the play doesn't happen, right, we're not calling anything. I mean, is there any other weird stuff with that?
Sorry, I didn't see that. What was that?
For the offensive pass, it's like if the pass doesn't cross the line of scrimmage, there can be no pass interference or ineligible player downfield penalties for OPI.
Yeah, so that's the college rule. So we had the same rule at the XFL. It's to influence screens, right? And so there's no illegal man downfield. If you watch a screen in the NFL, everyone's running flat down the line, and they have practice timing a lot to say, okay, flat down the line, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. They have longer, slow screens, and then they're out. Versus college football is very big on the jailbreak screen, to where you can be out and about down the line of scrimmage as long as the ball's caught behind. An O lineman can be 12 yards down the line or down the field, right? Makes it very hard for the defense. Also, in startup football, you want to influence the screen game to slow down the defensive lineman, because defensive linemen at the start of it, because pretty much your first 3 games are like training camp, because you don't have that much time together. And the defense is always ahead of the offense at the start of a league or a start of a defense or start of a season. So, you're slowing down the defensive line by adding more opportunities to throw screens.
Well, there you go. Anything else on the rules? Any other things that you had in the back of your mind that you had seen from any of this stuff?
No, I think that is great. I don't think there should be any fan bases. We don't know what the new XFL 2023 rulebook is going to be. We don't know exactly how this is going to be. So I think conjecture on whether these are good rules or bad rules is, that's a wasted time. I think, you need to understand why you do certain rules or how they come up with rules. I think that's important. Like we didn't do everything perfect. in 2020, me and my team. But I think that we had a reasoning behind everything, and there was data to support it, right? It was always, what's the problem we're trying to solve for? What does success look like? Is it big enough to matter? And how do we get there? And then the problem solves. Fortunate for us is that we had 95% approval rating on our rules, right? And like you said, the best metric for how you can judge if a game is exciting is how much beer did you sell? And we sold out a beer in every one of our stadiums for every game. So, we were happy with our rule set. So it's only good for the game of football if the rules that we utilized or that my team and I created are utilized by more people because we did help push the game forward.
It's just weird. There was already a lot of like animosity, and I just saw a lot of that in the lot. Because when did it come out? Like last Wednesday, Thursday. Like just a lot of like, well, this is our. There's a weird, and I've seen this with fan control football with everything. There's just this weird like ownership, like. Like it is our like for the fans, right? Not you. I mean, you guys own them, but like the fans have this weird like ownership, and I just don't always. Like, I'm like, it's Fox Sports or like it's Redbird. Like Redbird doesn't need you defending. Like Redbird's got $1 billion. Like they don't need you defending them, right? Like go talk with Frank Murtha with MLFB if you really want to like defend someone that maybe needs a little bit of a helping hand. Like it's weird. So there was a lot, but we don't have animosity with this.
I mean, people our age grew up in the console wars, and now this is just our version of the console wars, where people like Nintendo and Xbox and PlayStation. You had your alignment over your $600 product, right? And it's like, why does this even matter? We should all just be like, why can't we just cross-play with our friends? That's like the same thing for this. I think, I believe in a world where it would be great if Fox and XFL and Fan Control all worked with each other, and guys can make way more money playing seasons back to back. We know that you can play 20 games in a season. Daniel Brunskill played 24 games in a calendar year, playing the 8 weeks in the AAF and then playing 16 weeks with the Niners. So it's not, you can find a way to play more football in the year. And so if the 2 leagues work together and the 3 leagues work together and 4 leagues work together, it's just more opportunities for players and more excitement for fans. And I think, don't be animosity to any one of them. There's no Highlander rule when it comes to startup football. I think you have a sign back there about twice failed league, right, behind you. So it's like, you should all just be supporting each league and trying to get as much excitement for the fan bases and not be pointing fingers at who does what. I think that's done behind the scenes of people who are trying to compete on contracts.
Yeah, and also I think it's okay to to critique and criticize is not the same as hating. I think it's okay to be like, hey, I wish that they would do more. USFL is in training camps right now. I wish we would see more footage. That is a tangible thing that we are saying. That's not like, well, this thing sucks, I'm not watching this. Right. There's levels to this. There's nuance involved.
Yes, exactly. I think that's 100% valid for people to ask to want more, especially because we were the league that built ourselves as Oliver said, the league of yes and the league of access. I don't know if they're going to give play calls over the air. I think that was one of the cooler things that we did. One of the things I was super passionate about that I hope I see both these leagues do is make football fans better fans, right? I don't think that people are watching. There were quite a few, but not a majority of our fans that watch this football. USFL is not going to be the first football they watch, or the XFL wasn't the first football they watched, or new XFL is. I think it's, you're getting football fans. So how do we take, in almost like summer school, make you a better football fan for the fall and learn more about how coverages work or how play design works or how play calls sound, or how players think about it during the game, right? I'm sure they're doing sideline interviews with players. It's hit or miss, especially with cursing. But, I think that they're going to do some hopefully unique things that make football fans better football fans. And that's, what I wanted to do as well. Edutainment is what I pitch to people, clients, is how do we make our fans better at being our fans?
Well, Sam, this is so much time today. A delight. You're traveling. I appreciate you. I know that the listeners and fans really appreciate it. I mean, I think they argue because they care, and they care about, the things that you and the team and everyone that's been involved in all this stuff put together. So I couldn't thank you enough for coming on and sharing your time and knowledge with all the listeners today.
Thanks, Reed. Hi, Lou.
We'll see. We'll see how. We'll see how we get any feedback from this. So it'll be good.
Sure. Bye.
Thanks. Well, we had to cheat on him a couple weeks ago, but now we have the OG, the Godfather, the trademark, our friend Michael Cohen, Beverly Hills trademark and IP lawyer on. Michael, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me back.
How do you put up with me and all this in these emails? I really appreciate your time.
It's all good. It's all fun.
So last we spoke, we kind of thought maybe real USFL had a case. The initial complaint, was filed. They updated all that stuff. So now we're back. Fox has, had a response and all that. Where are you at in terms of where we're at in this timeline here? Okay.
All right. So a couple things have happened since last time we spoke. Last time the initial complaint was filed, and there was a subsequent preliminary injunction. Okay, so preliminary injunction was filed by the plaintiffs. What that is in addition to the complaint, opening the case up, it's another motion which the plaintiff asked the court to give them everything they kind of want now, as opposed to later down the road at trial, because it's necessary to do it right now because they're going to face irreparable harm, and it's an immediate thing that they need now as opposed to waiting down the road. So that's what they filed. What happened more recently is that the defendants in the case, Fox, they filed their opposition to it. And in that opposition is a lot of details about their arguments and their position. What's going to happen after that is that the plaintiffs will get a chance to respond to that, called a reply. And so that's kind of pretty much it in regards to the pleadings, like the writings. So the initial motion, opposition, reply. And then after that, the judge is going to hear it. And there's either going to be a hearing with oral arguments in which everyone has to show up and they'll have their chance to argue in front of the judge, or the judge just may decide on the papers.
Even though, because they have the 18th, right? We have a preliminary hearing date scheduled, right? Which is the USFL kicks off the 16th and 17th in Birmingham, and then it would be the next day, that Monday in LA, right?
So that's the hearing date. You always have to have a hearing date. But sometimes the judge at their own discretion will say, you know what? You don't even need to show up. I've already decided, or I'm going to take it under submission and I'm going to write my own order and I'll email it to all the parties when I'm ready. So that can happen too. But preliminary injunctions are pretty heavy and they're pretty important. There'll likely be I can't predict what the judge is going to do, but there'll likely be a hearing.
What is your sentiment, feeling, having read through a lot of this very detailed response from Fox? I mean, it feels the general sentiment online is Fox is slapping around the real USFL a little bit. A very detailed, rebuttal to a lot of these things.
It's not all right. So we heard the plaintiff's initial position, and the preliminary injunction kind of mimics the complaint a little bit. So now we're hearing really for the first time legally what the arguments are from Fox. Of course, they're going to have a lot of heavy, detailed arguments, and it's all there. And these arguments are really the arguments that are going to set the roadmap for the case in the future. This is the direction in which they're going to go in. So we now know what their position is. And now they're just going to build the case up if the case progresses on. So if there's going to be the discovery phase where they start deposing people and doing all that, all the arguments are set here. We know what type of questions that they're going to ask, and even that trial, what their arguments are going to be. We now know.
A lot of this, where a lot's been made of Fox, is kind of in the position of okay, you guys are selling merchandise. We are starting and have started a football league, right? Your damages, they seem minimal compared to shutting down a league, right? Firing everybody. We've hired all these people. We have these leases in place.
Yeah. So, all right. So, preliminary injunction is a heavy standard because you're asking the court to give us our relief now. So in order to do that, you have to go through these factors that are required, and you have to establish that there's irreparable harm that you're going to suffer. So what Fox is doing is that they're going through all the factors and stating that, look, the plaintiffs, they kind of waited long to file this motion. They waited 9 months, and they don't have trademark rights. So they're not, the presumption that they might, that they can fight them on this is, they have a good presumption of doing that. And the extent of anything that they sold in the past was minimal. They made reference to the apparel, and it was just a couple $1,000s here and there and things like that. And those are all good positions. But still, the court is going to have to, look at what the plaintiff's position is, and why did Fox even adopt this? If what they're saying is true, then what's why did they adopt this trademark if they're not trading off of the goodwill? That's one thing the court's going to have to look at. And the biggest one is just whether or not there was abandonment. So at the heart of what the defendants are arguing is that they're that the plaintiffs, the real USFL, they don't have trademark rights because whatever rights they're claiming to have, those were abandoned a long time ago. So that's what is really going to have to be analyzed. And the judge doesn't even have to make a decision in regards to any of that stuff now. All he has to decide is whether or not it's so clear cut that he can make that adjudication now. And if there's these issues that you think that can be hashed out, then he's not going to issue the preliminary injunction, and the case will move on.
The one thing that was interesting on here that we've gone through, because a lot of this is made, right, the real USFL is suing Fox. Fox made a point in here to point out that they are actually licensing the trademarks from the Spring League LLC, right? They're included in the suit, right? It's the Spring League LLC, it's Fox. And that the Spring League was the one that acquired them. We just thought that was interesting. Like, Spring League was the kind of Brian Woods' future, former thing before they started the USFL. Spring League LLC also owes like $1.4 million in unpaid hotel damages in Indianapolis, which is like unrelated, but it's this history, right, of like questionable things. So I think the idea is like Fox is licensing this stuff. So like, God forbid, if they did have to pay whatever, you could just say, hey, this is the Spring League's thing, right? Like, we're stepping away from that, right? Why would LLC would be incorporated in that way and utilized in a trademark holding?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of things that the defendants kind of brought up. And there was some reference to someone that had, iffy background and criminal record. And what they were saying is that these are kind of red herring distractions that have nothing to do with the core issues. So they still have to look at whether or not there was true abandonment, and that's going to be the core issue that needs to be looked at least for purposes of now. So those kind of things, those details, that's going to be hashed out in maybe in a deposition or in a motion for summary judgment or in discovery, whether or not any of that kind of stuff has any bearing for later at trial. But for right now, there's a heavy burden on the plaintiffs to establish that they're going to be irreparably harmed, and that the merits are in their favor, that there's a substantial likelihood that they can prove their case, and that there's these other factors you got to look at, whether it's in the public interest, and there's all those kinds of things. So the plaintiffs really got to establish those things for the judge to, make this big decision to stop the league, which is right now in motion. So Fox, that's what they're arguing. They're saying, hey, they waited a long time. They could have done this 9 months ago. And, to the extent that there are damages, they're quantifiable. So one of the factors is that it's hard to quantify. Any other kind of relief would be hard to assess. So what defendants are saying is that, all right, even if there is, that they're quantifiable, we will, owe them like a licensing fee, for example, and it could be settled through damages that way. So let the case move on. So the hurdle right now is just to get past the preliminary injunction, and so if defendants can do that, then they can just continue the battle.
How are you feeling about this now versus how you feel when we talked a couple weeks ago?
So we know more, obviously. We know the defendant's position. They have tons of arguments. Whether or not they're valid, whether or not they're strong, those things need to be hashed out. I don't know if what they're saying is accurate or not, or what the plaintiffs are saying is accurate or not. So that's where, the discovery phase, where all those things can come back to haunt you, or you can find your winning ticket of or your smoking gun somewhere in a statement that someone makes, or an admission that can be later used at a summary judgment motion or at trial.
A lot's been made. We don't have nothing to worry about, right? There's no chance that any of this comes to pass. The league is in perfect thing. I mean, I kind of feel that way, right? But you have to look at it from kind of the way the law is. I mean, I don't want to be like hyperbolic here, but is there even a chance of any of this stuff coming to pass?
Of course, there's always a chance. I can't, me or you, we can't predict the future. We can't predict what a judge or jury is going to do. And don't forget, this is a trial jury, I believe. So there's going to be a number of jurors who are going to decide the fate of this, and then they're unpredictable. You know how juries are; they can decide in any particular way. So if they view Fox as this big Goliath and the USFL as the underdog, the small David who got taken advantage of, who knows how they might rule? So there's always the possibility, and let's say there's some interesting facts that really come out during discovery that really supports the plaintiff's position. So a lot of these cases obviously don't go to trial. A lot of these cases settle, and maybe that's just the goal for USFL. There was some use. We know that there was some use that was occurring. Whether or not it was substantial and continuous, that's another story that needs to be figured out by the defendants.
Would you be surprised to learn that Fox is very much looked at as the good guy here in terms of like online popular opinion, and that really USFL is very much looked at as like they had their chance and they're kind of the wet blanket?
Yeah, a little bit, because it's a little odd, because Fox is the mega conglomerate, and it's huge and powerful. But I guess memories are short, so the USFL was a while ago. And, for those of us that can remember it, maybe we're more partial to giving the plaintiffs an opportunity to be heard. Whereas other people who are younger, they don't remember what this is, and they're just excited about this new league to move on. And also in the sphere of public opinion, all you're really hearing from is Fox for the most part in regards to promotion and talking about this. So a lot of people don't even know that the USFL was this pre-existing thing, I
don't believe you're old enough to remember the old USFL.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, what do you think of all this stuff? I mean, I didn't even know that. What do you think about this? I always, look, you're talking to a attorney who is a trademark attorney, so I'm always going to have an open mind and try not to be swayed by either side until I see what the evidence is. That's how it should be for everybody, right? But unfortunately, it's not in this day and age. So, people can be swayed by what they commercials and TVs and podcasts like our own, So, to me, it's just a matter of how strong their argument is and what facts do they have to support the law. And at the core is this, this abandonment. Is this abandonment issue correct or not? Will plaintiffs be able to show a lineage of continuous trademark use throughout the years that, up until present, to claim that they still have these ongoing trademark rights? And if there is a gap and that gap is enough to constitute abandonment, then Fox is correct. That the law does state that the trademark was abandoned, then a subsequent
user can come in and commercialize it. And, I've had clients that have done that. I've had clients that saw some interesting trademark from decades ago that's just been sitting around, totally defunct, and they use it. And that's a possibility.
A couple things. I like that you refer to it as our podcast. That makes me feel glad.
Your podcast. I'm sorry. On this podcast.
It's our podcast. No, Michael, it's our podcast. But no, I mean, as someone that has purchased old XFL domains and things from podcasts that have gone out of business, right? Like I get all of that. And the idea that, I mean, this can be entirely legal, but also like kind of crappy for like the original guys for whatever their motivation is, whether it's just whatever they say, preserve the league or make money on merchandise. The interesting thing now that came out is that, they're claiming that they're unable to enter into your merchandising agreements because Fox is shutting that down. So that is kind of more of the harm that they're talking about now, right? It's like, well, we can't even make money on this trademark anymore because Fox has taken over everything on this and like threatening to like shut down, right, the other third parties that might have been making merchandise before.
Yeah, and that might be one of their stronger arguments. And not that Fox is conceding to that, but they made reference to that in the context of this preliminary injunction. As I mentioned before, that, hey, in regards to apparel, even if they are selling, that's a quantifiable thing that can be compensated through damages money. So, what are the remedies in intellectual property law? Well, the main one is injunction, which is to stop infringer from doing whatever they're doing. And the other is damages, monetary damages. So they're two kind of separate things. So now at the heart of it is this injunction, but they might be right. They may, at the end of this thing may end up in a settlement in which they work out some kind of deal in regards to apparel and maybe some other stuff. That might be a strong argument that the plaintiffs may have.
So just in conclusion here, to set the timeline, we have this April 18th. The plaintiff, Real USFL, still has the opportunity to respond right to this ahead of time. If the judge were to make a decision, would that just be dropped before the 18th, right? Would that just be, like, I look at the Pacer every day and whatever. I mean, for people that are kind of like keeping up to date on this.
Well, whatever the hearing date is, I don't have the hearing date in front of me, but if it's the 18th, the judge is likely not going to just do something on the papers before that. So there'll probably be a hearing date because this is a case that's in the public eye, and it's an important case. There's a lot of money riding on it. So he will probably, be very cautious. And, I know the judge is Judge Walters, I believe, and he's a very meticulous judge. And so, he will weigh everything carefully as he can and probably give the parties an opportunity to be heard and do oral arguments. And then after that may take some time. Sometimes they can rule on the day of, and sometimes they say, okay, I'm going to take it under submission. And it might take a couple of days or maybe even a week or more, after that.
Wait, so you know the judge here?
No, I don't know him personally, but I've had cases with him, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I want some insights here. We have insight. How? I
can't discuss judges publicly too much. He has a reputation of being a good judge. He's tough procedurally, to put it that way.
Okay, I don't want to get you disbarred or whatever. Are you the court where this is taking place? Can we have on-site live correspondence on what I'm teasing?
Yeah, I believe so. Unless there's
swing by.
Yeah, there's for the most part they're open to the public and people can come in. Yeah.
Well, Michael, I don't know how busy your caseload is on the 18th, but it could be interesting to swing by and see what's going on.
Could be. Yeah.
All right. I've bugged you enough for today. Thank you. Any final thoughts? Anything on this?
No, just to stay tuned and let's see how the judge rules. And that's going to be the interesting thing, if he'll grant it or not. And then if not, just tighten your seatbelt because it's going to be a longer ride that everyone has to go through in regards to the discovery and all that kind of stuff, unless the case settles.
Or I mean, if they don't get the injunction, do you see Real USL? It's really hard to say. Real USFL being like, we're done, like dropping this if they don't get the injunction.
Who knows? Probably not. And a lot of it depends upon the order of the judge. So the order of the judge too. Sometimes they're detailed. Other times they're kind of very short and vague. And sometimes in the detailed ones, the judge gives a clue, a glimpse as to how he's kind of ruling. And it may give a little insight as to what direction the judge may go into. And so sometimes that could be the starting point for negotiations, because if the judge says something unfavorable, or he says something that, there's really strong merit in regards to this or this, even though I'm not issuing the preliminary injunction, this makes sense or that makes sense. The party sometimes gets scared by that, and they can use that to their advantage to help or as leverage in a settlement negotiation.
All right. Well, Michael Cohen, I appreciate your time today, bugging you and taking the time out. We listeners of our podcast really appreciate it today.
All right. Well, anytime.
Special thanks to Sam and Michael for, Sam is traveling, spending time coming on the podcast, talking about all this stuff. I mean, Sam gets paid to talk about this stuff now. So we really should be thankful for Sam spending the time to come on the podcast today, as well as Michael. These are like real people with real jobs that are taking time out to partake in these shenanigans. So I really appreciate that. I didn't talk at the top of the show. Please like and subscribe. We're still hovering on that 1900 mark. We had the big surge with the USFL supplemental draft. We had the big surge with the the initial draft and all that kind of stuff. But would love to hit the 2000 by the time we get to our live show in Birmingham. I would be remiss also if I didn't plug that. We have begun announcing the guests that we have for our USFL kickoff show here in Birmingham coming up in 2 weeks on April 16th. We are going to have Roy S. Johnson of AL.com. You've seen Roy on the show before, talking about the deals and everything going on in Birmingham. Roy lives there. Roy's going to be on. We have Ron Frederick coming on. He played in the USFL for the Stallions back in the day. Ron is going to be in person as well. We have some kind of remote and some in-person guests, because not everyone is able to make the trip out. We have Mike Mitchell, of XFL, CFL, USFL News Hub fame. Mike Mitchell is going to remote in. We also have Mark Perry, of the XFL Week in Review. Zach, I know you're going to be happy. Your boy Mark is going to be zooming in that way. We also have Dustin of Royal Retros coming on. You guys know, he did the Dragons merch that's part of our giveaway for our 2,000 subscriber. Dustin's going to be there. Andrew Murray is going to be on. Andrew was with me a couple weeks ago talking about the the USFL Rulebook release and fan control football and kind of all that stuff. Andrew's going to be in person. I think we're going to have Pat as well, who was on here before, breaking down all the USFL uniforms and hopefully some player surprises. Been talking with the league about all that stuff, scheduling and everything, trying to figure that out. Should be a loaded show, but we've got 6 guests, 7 with Pat announced so far. That has been promoted on our Twitter. I'm going to start bombarding Facebook and stuff with that as well. So just be sure to stay tuned for that. Some other USFL notes today as we record. The USFL has updated their website, kind of done a refresh before the kickoff. That's good. They were kind of running into the point where they hadn't posted all their press releases on there. And so, it's good to see them. It seems like slowly but surely, everything is kind of clicking for them. I've seen a lot of critical praise about the website relaunch and all that kind of stuff. If you go to theusfl.com or USFL2.com, they really need to get that USFL domain, but I think it's like a Japanese United States Frontline or something. But the USFL.com will get you there. Also, the other news this week, your boy Reed took it on the chin a little bit on social media this week. I had always been, I said last week, I was very wary of the USFL doing this Hard Knocks. I know the players had talked about it. I know coaches. I just kind of thought that was shorthand, right? Like, oh yeah, they're doing a Hard Knocks thing. Like it's going to be behind the scenes. They came out, Variety reported Wednesday, and then USFL did their press release. They are going to do a weekly TV series on Fox. This is literally the best of everything. You get all these people, DMing me like, ha, whatever. This is great. I never said I didn't want this. I just said I didn't think that this was going to be happening. Very, very thrilled to be wrong with this. But you got to stand by what you said. I stood by the first week. I said this wasn't going to happen. Held firm. They proved me wrong, and now here you go. It doesn't mean I'm being like hypocritical. It means that was what I believed, and now things changed, and I was wrong. So there you go. This is from Variety. The show is going to be called United by Football. I had noticed earlier this week that the USFL was debuting that new tagline in a lot of their ads that had already aired before, like the penalty flag one that I think they had aired on Fox. They started adding that United by Football. I thought that was a great tagline. I thought that was really smart for them to do. United by Football, it's going to be a 13-episode documentary series produced by Fox, produced by the league, NFL Films, and Fox Sports. And that is what is interesting to me and a lot of XFL people that are online. NFL Films being involved with USFL by producing this series, I think is a really big deal. A lot of the people I've talked to, privately, think it's a really big deal. The whole thing with the XFL is, okay, we're going to do this year-out launch, and we're going to have behind the scenes, we're going to make our shows and all that. This is really what people want, I think. I mean, this is 13 episodes. We're going to have one before each game, so they've got 2 weeks, right, to get the first one going, and it's going to be right, kind of like a week in delay, kind of every week. I think, kind of like the Hard Knocks or Hard Knocks in season, whatever the NFL stuff that they have going on. Obviously, it's going to be high quality, right? You have Fox Sports involved, NFL Films, and they're going to air one before each game, heading through the championship game. A 1 hour series. It's going to be at 6:30 p.m. Eastern on Saturday, so that's 3:30 Pacific. The game is at 5:30 or 6:30 Central. So you're running into these weird time zones because USFL seems bound and determined to be announcing everything with Eastern times, except Birmingham is Central time. So you got to kind of remember that. But they're going to air that before. I was talking to one of our friends of the show. You know him. He's in the USFL. He's told me he's been mic'd up already for the practices. They've told him he's going to be mic'd up for the games. He is one of the main guys on his team that is going to be featured. He has been told there's a handful of guys per each team that are going to be featured on that. So I think that's exciting. This is like a non-narration player interview, kind of soundbite driven, like Hard Knocks. I mean, this is what was kind of teased and certainly came to be that way. Excited to see that. USFL had a couple other announcements working with University of Birmingham as their corporate partner and official medical provider. Some more kind of house cleaning that way, I think, heading into the season. But I think your big takeaways for the USFL today, training camps are underway. I think people wish there was more, footage coming out, right? I didn't live through the XFL 2020 in this regard doing the podcast, but from my understanding, XFL was a little bit more transparent that way. You're getting some local news media outlets in Birmingham covering it. I know that the media days have started today, Thursday, as I record this. So I think it's coming. That's always our thing with the USFL is we judge, they prove us wrong. We talked the Hard Knocks, they prove us wrong. Hopefully more training camp stuff, insights that way are coming. They're taping a ton of player stuff. I've been sent, they got this crazy entrance they're doing for the games with the players and shooting in this tunnel with the lights and stuff. I think it's going to be really cool. But it's like I said, I had private messages with some of the USFL people a few weeks back, and they said, like, what have we not accomplished that we have promised, or what have we not followed through with that we said we were going to follow through with? And I said, really nothing. I just think people are, what have you done for me lately kind of thing. But certainly the USFL moving forward with the April 16th kickoff. Sorry. running out of breath here. So there is your USFL news update. We are going to toss to Jim Mullin. We're going to talk a little bit more USFL, a lot of CFL stuff with Edmonton and BC. Like I said before, thoughts of the 4 downs and 3 downs, and Jim talking, genius sports and marketing with sports betting that way. And then the interviews with Greg Peach and Sergio Castillo coming up. I will check in at the end of the show to say goodbye. So thanks. Well, as the holder of the record for the highest single guest show interview we've ever had, Jim Mullin, welcome back to the program. How are you?
Good. Did you have some time to fill? Like, where am I in this Markcast sandwich? I'm not the bread, right? I'm some sort of filler. Am I the mayonnaise? Am I the butter? Am I the bologna? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, you are not the headliner today. We have the creator of the XFL Rulebook on dissecting the USFL Rulebook. But I'm very thrilled. Sometimes I book things and then other things fall on my lap. So I never. You produce this show. You know how that goes.
Oh yeah. No. I used to produce on radio for years too. So it's always a juggling act, but I always appreciate being on here because this is my favorite podcast for football, period.
Well, I was trying to figure out if I had to capitalize. I was writing the episode description today. If I have to capitalize President of Football Canada, quite an extensive Wikipedia page you have too. So that's exciting.
Well, yeah, somebody's been keeping tabs on me. It's the Krown Gridiron Nation show, that we've done now. And one of the things that I'm in the middle of working on is the Cornish Trophy. We present that in the spring, and that's for the top Canadian in the NCAA. And we've got the ballot out to our committee. And should have the 5 finalists out by next Tuesday, and then the following week we'll present it. Actually, in terms of props, this is the keeper, not the actual trophy. The actual trophy itself is at the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. John Mechie won it last year. I'm not. I don't think I'm giving anything away to say that he's probably the favorite this year to repeat. And the one guy that is the only guy to repeat back to back is Nathan Rourke, the future starting quarterback of the BC Lions. So Nathan Rourke's won the thing twice. Chuba Hubbard at Oklahoma State. He's now with the Carolina Panthers. John Mechie last year, and I think. It'll come down to John Mechie and Chase Brown, running back at Illinois, that had 2 fantastic 200-yard games, 253 against Penn State in a win for Illinois at Penn State. A kid out of London, Ontario. Those are guys that I don't think we'll see them necessarily play in the CFL at first, if at all. I think they're Sunday guys.
So I want to talk some CFL today. I want to get your thoughts, USFL as well. I guess just because we're on the topic of Nathan Rourke, what do you make of kind of this all for broke that BC is doing? We have a rookie, right? We're getting him maybe for less than we would be paying here in a couple years. Let's surround him with everything in the world that we can.
I think Nathan Rourke has the acumen and the work ethic and the skill set where he can be someone who's very special in the Canadian game. I think I may have said it on this show. I've said it on other shows that, following him through his college career at Ohio and even before that, but actually, giving them the eye test, going to see games in the MAC because he was a developing quarterback. The kid is as tough as nails, first of all. That's one thing that's highly underrated about who and what he is. But in terms of being able to use his legs to create opportunities, being fearless, having throwing mechanics that were ready for the pro game, I think it really comes down to, just the test of week in, week out pro speed. Now for him. And if you judge by the feedback of other players on the BC Lions, they all feel that he's ready. The backup in this case is Michael O'Connor, and I mentioned Penn State earlier. He was at Penn State, redshirted there. There was a change in coach. He lost the job to Christian Hackenberg. The rest is history in that category. But he came up here, won a Vanier Cup in his rookie year. I've seen Canadian university football for 3 decades, and there has never been a quarterback that can deliver a football, in my opinion, better than Michael O'Connor. He was head and shoulders above anything that I've seen at this level. And they're 2 different quarterbacks. Nathan, as I described him, as a guy that is ready to use his legs and ready to create opportunities. Michael O'Connor is more upright in the pocket, a bigger guy, drop back guy. It's a good 1-2 punch. And when I take a look at the CFL draft coming up, I would have earlier said draft Trey Ford out of Waterloo. Now Trey Ford has his coach at Waterloo has had, according to Justin Dunk, 24 inquiries from 24 different NFL teams because of his testing numbers at his pro day that he took down in Buffalo. The only thing that I worry about with Trey Ford, by the way, just going off on a little bit of a sidetrack, is that I hope he's developed as a quarterback if he goes to the NFL, that he just doesn't become an athlete that is moved over to like field side corner or something like that. I think he's got a lot of potential growth as the quarterback, but in terms of going all in with Canadians at that quarterback position, there have been those of us, following the Canadian game now for our entire lifetimes have been waiting for something like this. So I really hope, for the benefit of the game in this country, that this experiment proves to be very successul.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of hot takes though, where it's like, this is going to be a disaster. This is going to be what. I mean, what do you? I don't know. I mean, it's certainly a lot of pressure there. It's you look at, it's like decisions coaching staffs make, right? And then if that doesn't work out, then maybe that's not going to be the coaching staff next year. Or, you know what I mean? This is one of those, like, we're really all in decisions.
Well, I'd liken it to Doug Flutie's first year with the BC Lions, and as much as he established some fantastic numbers and football that, on the scale of excitement, I don't think has ever been matched since he left this league. In his first year with the Lions, he was hopelessly average. There was a learning curve there for even a guy like him. And I think there are going to be moments with Rourke, especially with some questions still at offensive line, that he's going to have some challenges from game to game. This is not going to be a smooth upward curve. I think there are going to be peaks and valleys based upon his opponent, based upon game prep, based upon number of days, based upon injuries that he might absorb during the course of the season. So, I think it's worth going all in on a talent like that, because whether or not his passport is Canadian or American, he was a standout at Ohio, and some people were saying that when he was playing NCAA football, he was the best quarterback that the MAC has seen since Ben Roethlisberger. I think that people need to be patient at times with Rourke, but at the same time, I think this is a story that can certainly have an arc for a number of years in this town.
Do you really buy in? So moving to my other kind of home team, we have Edmonton, right? I think Dunk posted, Edmonton trading Arbuckle, right? Thinking about doing that. JT Barrett, is that? Are we all in on JT Barrett? I mean, is that going to be the new face of Edmonton?
Well, I'm glad how you have this fantastic ability to hop on and off that Elks bandwagon, man. Like, I'm glad your ankles are wrapped.
We have.
It's all Victor, isn't it? It's Victor that's got you on.
I will tell you, President and CEO of the Edmonton Elks, Victor Quee, will be on next week. So I'm just saying, you know, I have let our fellow co-media compadres know that these things matter. These things matter in the history of the Markcast and what team we support.
Well, you know, we've seen quarterbacks like JT Barrett come up here with that sort of college resume before and not necessarily achieve. You know, Chris Jones should have a plan B and a plan C in this case. It was funny, you know, when I came back from Mexico a couple of weeks ago. I was actually, you'll love this. Actually, you know, you come home in your Mexico holiday gear, and you come back to the Pacific Northwest, and you got to be prepared to change to the temperatures and the rain when you get back to the airport. So I had some sweats prepared, and I had a hoodie prepared. So my sweats were Edmonton Elks sweats. And my hoodie was a BC Lions hoodie, just, you know, no particular reason. And I go out to the Park and Fly bus to get it to pick up my car. Who do I run into? G. Roy Simon, because he's coming back from one of the combines. And who's standing beside G. Roy Simon? Neil McAvoy from the Lions. So it's like, hey guys, I got both of you covered here. I basically got both your favorite teams, and I'm wearing them as I'm talking to both the assistant general managers. But you know, talking to G. Roy, it's really encouraging around the Elks camp because. You know, G. Roy was on our board of directors with Football Canada, and the one thing that I read from G. Roy is a new level of energy and a new level of positivity in terms of what's being done there. And I know a lot of things have been said about Chris Jones in the past. You know, how he's a little mercurial, how he works well with others and doesn't work well with some others, but. You know, the read from G. Roy on this is that it's positive, it's focused, it's mature. There's a new energy around that team, and the players that they have on that roster and the contacts that they've made are buying in. So probably a wise move to go with Barrett at this point and try to build something around him. But you need some layers behind that.
In terms of your Mexico vacation, you probably missed a lot of that. Like, did you know we were moving to 4 downs for like a week and then it changed back again? No, but you know, we're kind of off that now, which is good, right? I mean,
great.
but it felt to me, you know, this was like, how can we be relevant in the off season, right? Like, how can we talk? Like, okay, this is some controversy, right? But I mean, something needs to happen, right? So obviously we're not doing that, but what did you make of that? You already kind of said, but you could maybe expand on that. And then thoughts here moving forward, because that's not the answer.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was just thrown out there as a concept. I know Rash reported on it based on a source that he had, and I appreciate that the CFL needs to go through their process to examine everything, to put everything on the table. I think one of the things about the process, and sometimes this happens in organizations that don't have the full capacity or bandwidth to process everything they'd like, because I mean the point of comparison for the CFL is the NFL, right? Is that, you know, it would be nice if they, in this case, instead of just talked about it on Randy's road trip and left Randy dangling on this thing, just say, this is the process. This is who's put this forward. This is what we're talking about. And I think if there was that clarity and transparency going into reviewing rules and rules committee, this story wouldn't have dragged from town to town to town as it did with Randy. And, you know, I think it's one thing to have a discussion about this for a couple of days. The way that story dragged out, I don't think it really helped the Canadian Football League, in my opinion. I think there's other things that we could have been talking about, rather than quite frankly, I think the 4-down discussion devalues the product. It doesn't talk about your strengths. It talks about what you're not. And in that case, you're not selling your product then. I think some of the ideas that were brought up in terms of the ratio, guaranteeing at least 3 start on each side, great idea. I think the hash marks, great idea, as long as you can get coaches in a position where they're willing to make play selection calls that work with that. I think the one thing that we've seen in the CFL over the last few years is an offense that kind of looks the same no matter where you go, and play selection that is conservative and looks the same no matter where you go. And I understand the coaches want to hold on to their jobs, and it becomes about risk management. But I'd rather see opportunity management than risk management at this level, with what this game provides for the fans, for coaches, and for athletes. So it would have been nice over this 4-down discussion to be talking more about the opportunities that the game provides, rather than about what you're not. But I think that's the way I'd put a bow on this. And I'm glad we won't be talking about this for at least another 8 months.
Well, no, I mean, he did, and then it's just hard. Like and I've worked on both sides. Like I've worked in news, and I know you have, and on both sides, like the internet and the world just doesn't work at that pace anymore sometimes. And like we deal with this with the USFL right now, where it's like we're Fox Sports, like we want to have this come out, exactly when like they announced this new Hard Knocks kind of TV show. Well, people have been talking about it since last week, and it's going on the thing, and it's on everything. And then it's like, so finally yesterday they came out, okay, we're doing it. I'm like, it's been a week. I mean, that's like a lifespan in the history of, and look at Twitter, and not that Twitter matters all to anything, but it does just feel like you could get your handle on a lot more of these things. Like Randy could have come out, and thank God he finally did. I mean, thank God. I don't know how Tim Baines got that, Goofy Tim got that interview. But, I mean, that was good. I was glad Tim got I need to have Tim on now that he ruined my
Well, you need to have Tim on because you just called him Goofy Tim.
Tim, it's like I could have had a month's worth of podcast here coming up, right?
Yeah.
Could have had all that. That was like the day we had Jason Greger on, and we're talking all about the 3 downs, 4 downs, and then Naylor comes out and is like, "This has never been under discussion." I messaged him. I'm like, "You are a buzzkill." Like, I mean, I love you, but like, come on.
Well, I mean, look, I'm always going to bring the amateur's perspective in from the Football Canada point of view, and university ball and all of those sorts of things. And one amateur piece that maybe we can close the 4-down thing out on is, they run 4-down in CJEP football, which is, grade. Basically, it's the American equivalent is JUCO, kind of, right? It's in that, grade 12, 13, 14-ish kind of area in terms of age. So they run Canadian ball, 4 downs, not a yard off the ball, 11 inches off the ball, but to ensure that there's passing in the game, that at least once out of every 3 plays, an offense has to run a passing play. Unfortunately, what that's created is some very conservative play calling, and I'm not sure what degree the CFL did in terms of doing research or due diligence in that particular area, if they were serious about 4 downs, but they would have found that it was a dead end on a field that's 65 yards wide, and with what the Canadian football game is. It's basically a non-starter.
What are your thoughts? Because we haven't had you on since Grey Cup and everything with this whole Genius Sports, right? So if we're not doing 4 downs, right, we're not, but like we're more targeting analytics, right? We're more targeting TikTok ads or whatever. I mean, what do you make of that as a way to help promote this?
Well, they need data, and it's a competitive field right now in Canada when it comes to sports betting, and they need to be fed with data. I think by the last count in Ontario, there are how many private operators? It's at least 16. And full disclosure, my TV show on TSN is the presenting sponsor is PointsBet. So they got in there early, and they want to play a role in football. But for people stateside to understand, it's like states. It's broken up all over the place. So for instance, in BC, you've got BCLC, which is a Crown corporation run by the provincial government that is in that space. In Alberta, there's an openness to some of these private companies. It's a patchwork right across the country. So they need something that's centralized that feeds to all of those potential partners to get sports betting up and going. The one thing that is becoming clear, though, around sports betting is this windfall that the Canadian Football League was expecting. They may have overvalued where they were at in regards to this. And I think there's going to be some settling and some reckoning as we go through this process over this next 3 years about what players stay in the marketplace, what provinces decide to change their approach, whether or not they just want to go through Crown corporations, the lottery corporations, or bring in private partners. I think the final story hasn't been written on sports betting in Canada. I think it's a much more winding road than individuals out there predicted when the bill was first passed.
Well, yeah, and I got into it, with Dustin Nielsen and Naylor a little bit with this online because, Dustin's, promoting that. Well, we need more gambling. We need more gambling. So yeah, I was told it was going to be $2 million per team, and I know that it's going to take time and whatever. But I've said that, and I've got feedback as well. USFL, right? They're big on Fox, and we're going to use all this sports betting. I'm like, I don't see a lot of people betting on a USFL. Like, I don't. I mean, maybe it is. I was the one that said they weren't going to do a Hard Knock show, and now they are. But I just don't see. If you're going to bet, you bet on golf or you bet on baseball. Like, why am I going to go in? Okay, they got goofy rules, right? It's a little different. I mean, and we can segue into the USFL, but it's the same with the CFL. If I'm not interested in the CFL, I'm not going to bet on it just because I can bet on it. It's weird. I've never understood that mentality with the sports betting with the CFL.
Well, the one thing with bettors that I've learned is that some of them think that they can be smarter than the system sometimes. So they'll break away from a mainstream thing like NFL betting or golf betting, like you mentioned, and try to find that pocket where they can apply some specialized expertise. But I agree with you in regards to the CFL and the USFL. There's a couple of variables in there that could make people shy away. The 3-point conversion thing in the USFL in terms of point spreads and numbers, as much as that's trying to build something into the game from a betting perspective, I'm not sure if that's all that attractive. The possibility for that. So the Rouge is something that can be off-putting, I think, for sports bettors. The intentional safety in the CFL can even be that. So yeah, if you want to find people that want to specialize in a space, I think the one thing that's incumbent on all of these leagues is that they need a communications piece that goes out and informs the public, why this is compelling for your betting money. Why there's some sort of inside edge. They need very specific communication on this. And so, does a league like the USFL or even the CFL have the capacity to communicate that? I'm not sure, but if they want to develop it for potential revenue down the road, they have to make that investment.
But that's the thing is, you're talking, there's these specialized people that really like to do that. I'm like, yeah, okay, but that's not, we're trying to win over hearts and minds here. With the CFL and to a lesser extent, the USFL, I think they're pretty.
But I hate to interject here, but like the show that we're on is niche, right? We were talking about media and the old media and the new media. And the one thing about algorithms is algorithms have created a million niches. Like if you can dig down deep enough into that niche and create that energy around that fandom, then you can have something that's sustainable, right? But like away from this show, let's just put the NFL on just an absolutely different plane with the Premiership and World Cup soccer and even the NBA. Let's not even have those in the conversation. Let's drill down into how those relationships can be established within those niche cultures. And that's where you're going to get your payoff. It's going to be far more concentrated, but it's not going to be as widespread. Well, we've got a geographic area in Canada, we got little pockets in the States, maybe some international stuff down the road. That's what the CFL is at the end of the day. That's what spring football is at the end of the day. It's for the diehards. It's for those people who are really dug in, who love football regardless of the circumstance.
And they are very dug in.
Yeah, very, very much so. Yeah.
I want to hear, before I let you go, I want to hear your thoughts, just more generally about USFL, right? Even if you're not tracking the minutia of it, right? Like we have been on the podcast, but certainly it's permeated, your mindset at least a little bit here. We have another spring alternative league, right? XFL, presumably coming back next year. We've been told, again now we've been told, okay, April, maybe we're getting some news about that. But in the meantime, we have, to me, what feels like we're waiting for the big cake later. Some people are claiming, okay, we really love the USFL, but I think a vast majority are like, we're watching this to get ready, whether that's right or wrong. What do you think of all this?
All depends on how the USFL presents itself and what the look and the feel is as we get through this first season with it. Is there enough energy in the stands? Is there innovation in terms of the way that this is being presented on TV? Is the level of football, okay? Have they identified stories within broadcasts? And the kind of hard knocks thing that they're doing is going down that road. But have they identified stories that are going to connect with people? Obviously, there's viewership in the United States for spring football on broadcast. And we know in the great fragmentation of broadcasting that if you can get eyeballs onto an actual screen, especially a TV, like you're hanging on in some sort of way. That's why spring football still has currency, right? I saw the numbers for TSN overall and Sportsnet in this country in the past year off 8%. Period. And everybody's taking hits as things fragment and properties leak out in various directions. So what is the energy in the building? And I think the big mistake that the USFL might make is moving forward. You've got all these brands from the past that have currency that has kind of skipped 2 generations. It kind of lands on like Gen X guys like me and maybe boomers that are older. When they made that announcement with Doug Flutie talking about all those great names, They aren't in this USFL. You're not going to get 3 Heisman winners in 3 years signing in this thing. Do not, and maybe the court cases help this, but do not connect that culture of what 1.0 was with 2.0, other than the brands. The other thing that this new USFL might want to do as they track through the season is use the season to build what season 2 is. So, where are the Pittsburgh Maulers going to play, right? Where are these teams going to play? Like, start making announcements and start leaking things in the media that indicate that, there's a future for this team here, and there's a future for this team here in Tampa Bay, and there's a future in all of these other places, that gets it out of this one venue and gets it into the communities and start building connections with those communities as that season is rolling along. If they're just in this one facility playing football with guys in stipended hotel rooms for a season, and they don't reach outside of their single city and their single venue, like, they're not building anything for the following year. The XFL will have the curve on them, because the XFL has a very different model that's invested in specific communities. The St. Louis example is probably the best one.
I will, like you said, whether the court case or whatever, because I retweeted that Doug Flutie video over the weekend just because I had saved it on, because they haven't. I didn't see that. Yeah. They haven't scrubbed it off everything, right? Like, it's still, and like, it is the weirdest thing to me that, like, we come out, like, Doug Flutie, like you said, we're going to have Herschel Walker, all these guys, and then they get sued, and then it's like, we're not doing that, but people only care about it because it is that, but it's not really that, and we're calling it the new US. Like, I will never for the life of me understand. Like, I want to put Brian Woods or someone under, like, True Serum and just, like, talk to him about, like walk me through this, and I would just want to know your mindset, because we're profiting off this, but we're not acknowledging it, right? Like, we are the sequel, but the original didn't happen, right?
It's like the third Slapshot movie. It's like Blues Brothers 2000. Yeah. They're so separate from the original source. It's like you're trading on a brand, but you just don't have those elements and like that are built into that brand that made that culture around the brand, if that makes sense. And they need, in terms of managing who they are, to not come off as inauthentic. Right. The one thing that I think appealed to XFL fans is that when they brought the temperature down around the hype and presented it as a football product in 2.0, there was an authenticity to what they were doing that didn't exist in XFL 1.0. And I think with what The Rock has talked about in regard to an athlete-centric culture, right, that there's an authenticity to that. As much as possible in the entertainment industry, there's an authenticity to that. What they did with that launch with Doug, that's inauthentic, because they can't deliver on that.
Yeah, it's fine. I think there's so much good that they're doing, and then so much like crap that is gotten involved in all of this. And like you said, no one would care about this if it wasn't, if this was the Fox Football League. Nobody would care, right? If this was Brian Woods Football Experiment 2.0 or whatever, like, nobody would care. So we call it this. I don't know. I can't even verbalize sometimes. Before I let you go, just with the rules of this, and you've lived through, AAF and XFL and all that, what do you think about them kind of cherry picking things that have worked or been tested or not tested from these other leagues? Like you said, the 3-point, we have the overtime shootout that's very similar to the XFL, different. It's starting at a different, it's like at the 5, not the 10 or whatever. But what do you think of them kind of cherry picking these rules?
Well, I think those things are always worth an attempt. And the reason for it is this, especially in terms of, gathering people's attention and sustaining people's attention is that, if there is a wrinkle, that gives somebody a reason to, when they see it on their TV or their screen or their device, to hang around for a little bit longer to see what happens next. Attention is the new currency in the media business. There's a major value for attention. I think at some point in time in the next decade, content providers will be paying you to watch to deliver information and engaging content. So if you can, find a way when a team is moving down the field and they're down by 8 and they have an opportunity to win by 9, you start telling that story when they cross center field. That keeps you around. But they also need to say what the cause and effect is of these new rule changes, and be very aware of what's going on in football culture to make it applicable to the hardcore fan.
Well, it said they had cause and effect, I think, when they announced the rules, and they said the overtime rule, the effect was to give both teams an equal chance of winning the game. So I thought, you can't ask for more than that. The NFL just redid their whole. I just thought that was an interesting way to put it. We want to give both teams an equal chance to win.
Well, the other thing is, let's go way back to the genesis of the USFL and even the genesis of XFL 1.0. And in some ways, it was a reaction to the quote unquote no fun league, right? The football that we've seen out of the National Football League has been a whole lot of fun, right? You can't make the same statement and the same positioning in the marketplace that you're going to outfun the NFL these days. So your position needs to be with your product about really talking to that 1 in 10 NFL fans to say, hey, if the NFL maybe tried something like this would lead to better football. It's a 180-degree different positioning for spring football these days. There's got to be not an outside of the box thing, but an orthodoxy that you apply to spring football that wasn't in the first 2 iterations of the 2 big spring leagues. And I think that's the big shift. And those operators need to understand that.
Well, there you go. Well, I appreciate it. I can talk to you a long time. I can't have this be a 3-hour episode today. I very much appreciate it. You sharing your time and knowledge and expertise.
Thanks. Was I the bread, the mayo, or the bologna, or was I a combination of all three?
A lot of bologna, but it's good. It's filling with sustenance. So, Jim Mullin, President of Football Canada, I appreciate it. Well, it's been a long time coming for our busy schedules. I'm so glad we could finally connect. We have Greg Peach here. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. Appreciate you having me. I'm glad we could get our schedules linked up.
Former Edmonton, striking good chords there. Former Winnipeg. Dorothy's going to be happy to have a former Winnipegger on. Hamilton as well. How are you doing now? What are you up to nowadays?
So I own a sports training and development business out here in Spokane, Washington. So we train kids of all ages, really, starting at 8 years old. Just teaching them football fundamentals and as they get older, helping them get to the next level. And as far as their training and recruiting and all that good stuff that comes with it. But yeah, it's me and it's a team of other coaches, some former CFL guys that people might remember from back in the day. Dario Romero is one of them. We've had JC Sherritt as one of our coaches. Matt Nichols was with us. And so guys that kind of are around this area, they come out and coach the kids, all the stuff they've learned from their journey through high school, college, and the pros.
I didn't realize you're on Spokane now. I went to Gonzaga. We have not had the best week. Are you a Zags fan?
So I'm an Eastern Washington Eagle. So if they're not in the tournament, I could really care less. But living here, you're kind of an honorary Zags fan, and you watch the guys. And there's some local guys. One of our coaches, Deion Watson, his little brother, Anton Watson's on the team. So I try and, watch them and cheer him on at least.
That's all, yeah. I've given up my heart the last couple of years. I lived through a lot of that. I was in college there during the Adam Morrison days. I have very funny stories involving Adam Morrison and myself, actually, that are not super PG, but it's fun to meet it. But it's Spokane's like a CFL town. I mean, when it comes to Gonzaga, and there's nothing else there for them to cheer. I mean, professionally at all, they and now with the Spokane Shock, right? They're going out too, right? They got kicked out of right?
Yeah, the Shock are out. Sam Adams, he tried to revitalize them around here. It's weird because you have a great fan base with the Zags, and even at Eastern they sell out every game. But some things just they don't pick up traction. And with the Zags, it's like a real small hometown feel. Like even Adam Morrison, John Stockton, you'll see them all over the place. Just going to a basketball game, a kid's basketball game, they'll be in the stands. And people that come here and are legends here, they don't leave; they stay.
NBA champion Adam Morrison, right? Rode the bench. Never forget Adam Morrison. Let's talk CFL. I'm sure that's what people want to hear, although we could reminisce about a lot of that stuff. And I'm trying to think of the last time our friends got married at that, the Clinkin Daggers underneath there by the waterfall there. Had a wonderful wedding there. All this craziness going on the last couple of weeks. I think we're just, I don't know, trying to keep the CFL relevant, right? In the offseason, last year was XFL. This year it's like 3 down, 4 down. But I don't, that's not happening. But what are we doing in terms of where is the CFL in your mind right now in terms of the public, do we care about it kind of thing?
Yeah. I mean, I obviously as a former player, I keep up with it, and I still have, as old as I am, I still have buddies that I played with that are now the 10-year veterans and stuff like that. But, honestly, going into COVID, there was a ton of momentum that especially that 2019 season, and Winnipeg winning it all. And there was a ton of press too, even down here about it, just even the parade with Winnipeg and then a few of those guys getting NFL contracts after. And COVID kind of put a stop to it for a little bit. And it's not like the NFL where it's we'll find a way. We got plenty of money to do that. I think they're kind of rebounding from that. And I was actually really excited to see the new ownership in BC. I think they're because that's a market that needs to improve, obviously, that in Toronto, but, I'm looking forward to that. I'm gonna hit up a BC game this year. I always try and get to one out there, but just see what kind of improvements they're making. I honestly think that CFL's on good enough footing to keep going and keep doing the things that they've done. Like the 4 down talk, that was ridiculous. And I talked to a bunch of guys that I played with about it. A guy, Bryant Turner, that I played with in Winnipeg, we were actually just talking about it. We don't need gimmicks for, to improve the viewership, or there's other things we can do than change the game. The game's fine as far as the rules go. I think it's fine. And I think there's some great leadership that's trying to make it fan friendly and fun to watch.
Well, even we're talking USFL stuff, and they had their rule book come out, last week, and we're talking about it again this week. But that's what people are the unique quirks and traits of the different leagues. And I could never think of anything worse, especially, who cares about the USFL, especially the CFL that's been around for so long, that that's what, I don't know. I just never thought, adapting yourself to, if it's like, if a girl doesn't like you and like changing yourself to get them to, to date you, that's probably not the best situation. You know what I mean?
Well, and like in Canada, in general, the football is improving at the lower levels, and that's going to affect, how the game's played in the CFL. I just ran into Keon Raymond from Calgary. He's running a big program over there in Calgary. Just saw him this last weekend at a tournament that we brought our team to, and he's building a huge foundation over there. Same with the guys over at in Winnipeg. Their name's drawing a blank, but just these training facilities that I have here, getting the kids into the game early, and that's starting at that age, which is not normal in Canada, is going to improve the game. So there's no reason, like you said, to the quick fix. It's going to be, we're going to always be a little bit behind the NFL, but it's getting there.
Well, there's no like magic pill. I mean, it's, as someone, I think we're just so, predetermined nowadays to like, instant results, right? Like I'm going to watch this 30-second TikTok or whatever. Like we're just so used to it's years and years and years of like trying to turn the sway of anything. And I don't know. It just seems like every year, and I don't know if that's an Ambrosi thing or if that's just the way the world is now, but it's like global initiative. Okay. That didn't work. Moving on. Okay. XFL moving on. Okay. And like, you gotta, even if the XFL, like you gotta see something through as opposed to just, skipping from one rock to the other,
Oh yeah, totally. And even just bringing that up, like TikTok, it's like being relevant with what kids are like I have to do that even now, like to get kids interested in what we're doing, because, the boring stuff is usually the stuff that you have to do and you have to be good at, but you can still entice people with that. And I'm talking about as far as like training, but as far as the CFL, like they have to be a bigger presence, with the kids, and that's how things are going right now. And that's one thing that I don't see enough of, because I'm on my phone and I should be seeing some content, every week from the CFL. I follow all the sources. And I definitely don't see enough. NFL, even college football, it's flooding my timeline. So that's definitely something they can improve on to help with viewership, especially down here too. People talk about the CFL, but it's kind of just like, oh yeah, I've seen that on TV before, but it's not something that people are vested in.
Well, even like today, I was working, and something came up about travel, and I said, "Oh yeah, I went to Canada. Like I went to the Grey Cup. Like that's the Canadian Football League's. Like that's their championship. Like it's a lot of like steps to get Grey Cup or whatever. It's not just like, okay, I know what that is. It's always a little bit of a step sometimes, depending on who you're talking to.
Yeah, and people don't really, unless they know somebody. Oh yeah, I know somebody that I think was up there. And yeah, it's so like we were kind of talking before we started here, just how it's easy to be a fan once you are. Like there's so much out there for you to grab a hold of, and they make it easy to do that. Like just even I remember practicing, and there's people just at practice whenever they want. Come talk to you after, get autographs anytime. It's so accessible to the fans, and if they can just create a little bit of excitement down here and use the tools that they have, which there's a ton. It doesn't cost a lot of money to get highlights down here, or even blooper films or highlights, whatever. But it's got to be something that's present every single week. It's not that hard to do.
It's funny. I've seen a lot of chatter, USFL here, we're like 2.5 weeks from kickoff, and because it's owned by Fox, and Fox wants to be like, we like don't look at our we control. I had one of our episodes one week. It was like Gollum with Precious. Like, don't look at this is my league, and I see all these people like, I wish Fox was like more accessible and we could see more from the training camps, and we could see because they're in training camps and they're not showing anything. I'm like, that is kind of the CFL. Like you said, come to the training camp, come to the practices, come to the we're doing all these events. Like, it is interesting, but then they're like, I don't want to watch the CFL. And you're like, well, okay, but that's kind of what you want, is that more accessible. I mean, I think the game is the CFL game is going to be just as strong, if not stronger, than the USFL the first couple weeks out the gate. I can promise you that.
Yeah, no. People always ask me that. What about this new league? Is that going to take anything away? It's like, no, absolutely not. And especially because it's I love new leagues. Don't get me wrong. I think it's great. I think there's a ton of players that are sitting at home that don't have a place to go, because it is tough to get into a CFL roster as well. And it's, 50 guys. So yeah, I love that and that opportunity for them. But the CFL is, and people throw dollar signs around and stuff, but it's established. And, if I was a guy coming out of college and I'm looking at, okay, this league's been around for 100+ years, this one just started. Yeah, maybe I'll make a little bit less, but I at least know that I'm going to be going to a facility every day. And, there was, I think it was the UFL, where it's just like, oh, here's your stuff. See ya. That's hard. It's heartbreaking to see, but yeah. And I look at it too, just to kind of the accessibility part, going back to Zags, you can't get a seat at the arena to watch a Gonzaga basketball game. You have to know somebody who, is not going to be at the game. So I always tell people, go down the street to Eastern, their Division I basketball program. You can get to every game you want, and you can go meet the players after, before. It's there for you. The kids are going to have a great experience doing it. They don't care, at that age. Like, if they go meet a high school basketball player, they're ecstatic. So yeah, it's kind of weird to me sometimes when people complain about that, but it's like, it's right there for you.
It's the same. I get the comments every day. This Major League Football, that's like the other one that's starting right now, and I'm like, if they're doing training camps in May, theoretically, I'm like, just go watch the CFL. That's happening. I don't understand this pipe dream of this. Well, they've been around 8 years, but this is the year they're really going to hit the field. I'm like, okay, I don't know. I want to talk about a couple of your former homes here. Edmonton, I have my hat on here. We have Victor Cui coming on next week. I'm very excited. I've talked about that on the show a couple of weeks. President and CEO. What are you making of all the resurgence and everything happening in Edmonton? Seems like a lot of excitement there.
Yeah, no, I remember kind of the talk with, Brock and, making that transition. And I wasn't there when he was there. But I was there in the Tillman era. So, right after Machocha, I've been through some talk and some changes there, but, I'm excited. I'm always excited about getting some new blood in there and people that, can maybe have a different idea and different perspective on it. 'Cause it wasn't working whatever was happening wasn't working, and I'm not going to speculate or, I don't know that much about it. I just from what I hear from Eddie Steele, that's where I get my Edmonton news. But, yeah, I'm super pumped for it. Just like I am for the new ownership in BC, but it hits a little close to home because that was my the first team I played for. And, I love that place. I love the Eskimos organization, rich in tradition. I don't know if they brought Dwayne Mandrusiak back, but, the equipment manager, that guy's the heartbeat of the team, and I hope they do, because I know they let him go a couple years ago, that was pretty stupid in my opinion, but hopefully he's back. And, that was kind of my biggest issue with it, to be honest.
It's interesting how quick, when things work out, you really are able to make a change and flip things around, right? I don't know. I just felt like it was this doom and gloom, like we're falling off the side of the world here. And now everyone I talked to, I mean, Eddie's been on the show, like no one could be more excited about what's happening there. And it's been 6 months. I mean, it's really crazy how quick, like you're able to, you know, when you're someone like Victor and the team he's assembling, like if you have the means, same with the Doman, like if you have the means and the vision, right? Like, I think that's what's cool about the CFL too, right? Unique visions and voices from the ownership groups. Like you can make change if you want to, and it can be really tangible change, as we've seen here in the last couple of months. Yeah.
And the, you know, even a team like Edmonton, they waited a long time to get that, to make that change. I've been on teams when it happens right away. I was in Winnipeg and, you know, I was with a coaching staff that was only there and management that was there for, you know, 2 years, and they make the change and, you know, boom, 2-time, you know, 2 Grey Cups. So, you know, does that happen in Edmonton? I don't know, but I think their chances go up for sure this year. And the CFL, man, it doesn't matter if you were last place, first place, man, that's what I love about it. Anybody can win the Grey Cup. Anybody.
Well, now I see, speaking of, I mean, I think it was today Dunk floated that Nick Arbuckle, they're talking about trading Arbuckle away. I'm like, what are we doing in Edmonton? Like, because they're like my backup team. I mean, BC that's America's CFL team, but you know, Edmonton is very close to my heart. And I'm like, I wasn't sure about Nick Arbuckle, but now we're talking JT Barrett. Like, I don't know. I'll be curious to see what the moves they make there. If we have all these rookie quarterbacks and Nathan Rourke and everybody flying around crazy pants, I don't know.
Yeah, I did see that Barrett news. Yeah, the thing with those rookie quarterbacks too is those guys can light it up like the first 3 or 4 games, and then you get some film on them, and it happens every freaking year, man. Every year. I've been on the wrong side of that too many times when they throw in a quarterback week 12, never played, and like, oh, we're going to just kill this guy. And then he goes for 400 and he's the newest thing. And then 2 weeks later, he's on the bench again. He can't throw a touchdown. So yeah, that's another cool thing about it too, though, is like at any point in time, you might find the next star quarterback and you might not know who he is. Came from a D2 or a FCS or, you know, look at the quarterbacks that have had success. The majority are from mid-major, you know, FCS schools. You really don't see those big time program guys do that well. So, if I was a GM, I'd be looking at Arbuckle over Barrett, but I don't know.
You got a lot of tape on Arbuckle now. I mean, it's that's one of the things there where it's like, you know, it's like Daniel Jones with the Giants. Right? You're like, are we really we're really still? I get very perplexed with that. Before I let you go, I want to touch on Winnipeg. You know, they're talking 3-peat, right, and all of that. I saw the power rankings came out, you know, CFL.ca, Edmonton was in last. I think BC was in second to last. Winnipeg in first. What did you think of the whole miracle run here, you know, 2-time, and then what are their chances here next year coming back?
Yeah, man, that defense was just insane. Lights out last year. The numbers were stupid, what they were putting up. And Mike O'Shea that's my dude. That guy gave me a shot his first year when they were kind of cleaning house from that 2013 team. And, he's a loyal guy and he gets faulted for that sometimes, but, as you see it works out, and usually doing the right thing is kind of a slow burn. And that's what happened, you know, from the start to where it is now. So, I mean, all the success that Winnipeg has gotten, it's that management team and coaching staff they're phenomenal. And so they should be the favorites, but like we said, I mean, shoot, BC could be in there, Edmonton could be in there. You never know with this league, but Winnipeg most definitely should be the favorite.
We've had the BC crew on the last, probably haven't had one for a couple weeks, but I am amazed with what they've been able to do with the salary cap there with Nathan and everything, and just how it's like, we are going to hire everybody in the world, we're going to sign everybody in the world that we can, because we're paying we got this cheapo rookie quarterback. I don't know. I mean, it's crazy. It's either going to be spectacular or it's going to be horrendous. So I mean, it's going to be one of the two. Well,
I remember in 2011 when Lule came in and took that team over. He was on his first contract, and they started like 0-6 or 0-7 and ran the table. So yeah, it might be a little slow start for them just with their quarterback situation, but dude, win the Grey Cup after an 0-7 start. That's why I love this league. You can never count somebody out.
It's fun. It's exciting. I could talk to you for another half an hour. I think our episode this week is already going to be like 2.5 hours with this. I have a lot of craziness planned, but we'll have to bring you back on. I'm so glad that we could connect. Any final thoughts, words, comments before we let you go?
No, I'll just give a shout out to all my Eastern Eagles, my former CFL boys. But I appreciate you having me on, and I love talking ball, especially CFL. It's very close to me, and did change my life. So
we had Vernon Adams on the show a while ago. I mean, you guys didn't, right? You were before.
No, I had
way before.
I was roommates with Matt Nichols for 4 years, and then Bo Levi came right after, and then Vernon came right after. And I'm looking for Eric Barrier from Eastern Washington he might be the next big thing up there. He'll be a rookie this year if he gets passed up by the NFL teams, but he broke all those guys' records, just shattered them. So
who knew Eastern? You right in our it's crazy. Eastern and Cheney, Washington. That we knew that is the hotbed of the CFL. Greg, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.
All right, I'll see you later.
Well, if it wasn't 8:30 a.m. Pacific, I would probably be cracking open the Bud Light Seltzer to talk to our guest today, Sergio Castillo. How are you doing?
First of all, I appreciate you having me here. I've been doing pretty well. I'm in off-season mode right now, so training real early in the morning, and then daddy duties, as you can see, throughout the day. So it's been fun. And then my girl right now, she's in the playoffs. She's a high school soccer coach. She's coaching the girls and the boys for Palo Duro High School. So that has us pretty busy right now.
And who's this little monkey that's crawling around?
Yeah, his name is Jared Castillo Cavazos. He was born 15 months ago, and he definitely keeps me busy in the off season.
Well, this is exciting times for you. I love chatting with the CFL players in the off season, seeing a little bit of their family life. Now you're going to Edmonton. I want to talk a little bit Winnipeg, XFL, everything else. What's it been like here getting signed up with the Elks?
First of all, just grateful for the opportunity to be able to, sign with a great organization, and to be able to pair up with someone like G-Roy and Coach Jones. So, I've known them for years in the past, and just excited to be able to rebuild, something special here, and, can't wait for the opportunities that come up.
Do you sense the excitement that seems to be kind of permeating out of Edmonton now with, the new hires and coach, and we have new management, everything else?
100%, and it's just, now that I've been on social media and I've been following a lot of Edmonton pages, and you just see the energy that's flowing around, and I'm receiving it as well from the moment I signed, and so I'm excited to do my part to bring the best of me, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and just to be able to do something great at Edmonton. So, can't wait to start this process. It's already been started with the hires and with the staff and the players, and can't wait to bring some good football to Edmonton.
Last season in Winnipeg, right, you had a huge, Grey Cup champion, huge, title game. My wife and I were there. We were up there covering it. What was it like, that whole experience coming into Winnipeg, getting really hot, accomplishing what you needed to, and obviously, it got you into this position now, but what was that like?
Just very fortunate to finally be in a situation where I could play, number one, in the playoffs, right? Because in my whole professional career, I had never experienced a playoff scenario. So that was fun, and came late into the season, but to be for the guys on the team to embrace me from the very get-go, that made me feel comfortable. And I was very appreciative of that. And that made me feel just right at home, because I was back in Winnipeg back in 2015 and 16. And just very fortunate to be in a situation where I can do my part. And I feel like, I got hot, just at the right time. We finished our last game against Calgary and then went straight into the playoffs. And I felt like that carried on pretty well.
It's so hard, especially, special teams and kickers kind of have a special place for us. We have lots of friends in lots of different leagues that way. All going from the XFL and going to the Jets and then going to the CFL and that. I mean, what is it like mentally going through all that? I can't imagine how challenging that must be.
It is challenging just because I've always, people want stability, right? They want to know, hey, I'm going next year, I'm going to this place, and I know, what's it like. And, every year I've been somewhere different, right? And different teams, different leagues. But the way I take it is that, man, I'm just very fortunate to be able to kick a ball and get paid for it. I'm 31 years old, so not a lot of people get to play past high school. Not a lot of people get to play past college. And if they do get to play pro, the longevity is not, the percentage is not high for our athletes. So just very fortunate. I just take it as it goes. Every city that I've been in, it's when my family comes, it's a vacation for them because they get to experience a new city, a new culture, new food. We're big on food. So that's the way I've been taking that, right? And then just trying to build relationships with different people. Now it's just, I have friends from all over Mexico, US, Canada, and now different parts of the country because of the global draft. So that's been very cool that I'm able to develop and keep these relationships past football, even if I haven't played with that team for a year or a couple of years.
Also playing with BC, that's my team. A couple stints there. Lions organization. What was it like taking part in that?
The funny thing is when I signed, I first thought we were going to train in Vancouver, and I knew we were playing in Vancouver, but we'll find out we're playing in Surrey, which in a way was blessing in disguise because we're not in the city, right? A big city. So you don't have that traffic, just all clustered. Team, embraced my role there. G-Roy was there. He was a scout, and he spoke to my agent, Gil Scott, and, they gave me a chance. Especially G-Roy, he took a chance on me because I tore my ACL in 2017. I had been on a couple teams, but didn't plan out. And he gave me another opportunity to revive my career because I thought I was done. After I tore my ACL, I hadn't recovered as quickly as I thought I wanted to. And but to be able to go there, and I literally took it game by game, day by day, game by game, because my knee was still in a lot of pain. But I found a way to get through it, and I'm very appreciative of the athletic training staff there at BC, strength staff with Coach Boyko. They just helped me maintain my knee, in terms of, ways to activating the muscles so the knee wouldn't get a lot of, feel a lot of pressure, a lot of tension. So just very appreciative of the training staff there because they took care of me very well. And that if it wasn't for them in that aspect, I don't think my knee would have made it through a whole of 18 games. So for G-Roy to give me a chance to go there and play, and then you're just very appreciative of the people that helped me out there.
A lot of our listeners, know you from the XFL, right? From chugging Bud Light seltzer, right? A lot of celebrations that way. What was your time like there? A lot of people, I think, felt connected to you and a lot of the guys after that, like seeing a lot of these, player interactions and celebrations things. What was it like there?
It was very different from an aspect we didn't know what to expect. from organization standpoint, from fan standpoint. First game, we thought, man, we'll get lucky if we get 5,000 fans. Man, we had 18,000 fans from the get-go. And the thing that helped us was that year when the Houston Texans lost to Kansas City. I think they blew like a big lead in the playoffs. So a lot of fans were heartbroken, disappointed, and they looked towards to Houston Roughnecks for, maybe this could be a team we can go for. And, we took advantage of opportunities that we had to play 3 home games, and, we ended up 5-0. And I think if we would have kept playing the season, we could have packed that whole stadium out. So that was fun. And then just the fact that it was a new league, they were trying a lot of new stuff, different rules. And in terms of the social media aspect, when they asked me to chug a beer, the funny thing is I'm not a drinker. I hardly drink. And right after the game, they start giving us Bud Lights. Normally they give you Gatorades, protein shakes, water. They started giving us Bud Lights, and I'm with Colton and Austin, my snapper, my holder. And just for the heck of it, I chugged one with them. Austin, he doesn't drink either, but he didn't drink one. So I chugged one with them. Boom, right off the bat. Later, our social media guy, Jake, comes up to us. Hey, Bud Light is sponsoring us. We need to do a video. Can you just chug a beer? I'm like, man, I just chugged one like 2 minutes ago, and I feel like I'm about to be gone. Sure enough, so I chugged 2 beers within like 5 minutes span, and I am just I am so gone because I'm not used to it, so I'm a super lightweight. I hadn't eaten about 5-6 hours on top of that. But that thing blew up. And the funny thing is, like I mentioned earlier, my girl, she's a high school Spanish teacher, and she's a head coach for soccer. That Monday, she goes to work, and all her students were like, oh, my God, Miss Cavazos, your boyfriend's a drunk, this and that. And the funny thing, like I said, I don't even drink because that TikTok went viral. So, I just took it and I ran with it, and it's been a thing ever since, and the league folded, unfortunately, because of COVID. And I think, it was going really well. So I have those memories with me, right? And I can, share those with my family, down the road.
But what I think is cool is, and I was talking with, we had a former Edmonton, Greg Peach is also going to be on the show this week, played years ago, talking about the accessibility that the XFL had, really similar to what the CFL, and being able to, have guys on and talk to them on social media and be able to interact. Like, I think that, all this NFL and everything else, that's what fans want, is that connection. And like this, we could have you on talking about stuff. Do you find that? Do you enjoy that, being in the CFL as well? And obviously having spent a lot of time there?
100%. Just because me as a young kid, I always wanted to ask questions to my idols growing up. And for me, it was soccer, baseball, and a little bit of football as I started growing older. But, social media wasn't a big thing. But now the CFL and these new leagues, they've made it very easy for the fan-player interaction. So now you only get to see them on the field, but you get to know them as a person in their life as well. So if I can also use this platform to share my life, not just through sports, but someone can relate to what I've been through, and if I can help them out in their journey, it's a plus, it's a win.
What do you tell to a player like that? You've been in everything, seen everything, had success, had heartbreak. What would you say to someone how do they keep going?
Number one is create a vision board. And a vision board is basically a poster board. You can get a wall, and I cut pictures of your dreams and put them on that board. And, one of my friends that first told me about that was back in 2013, 2014. He told me, that's going to be the first thing you're going to see, and that's going to be the last thing you see before you go to bed. It's going to remind you on bad days who you're going to become. Because we're all going to have bad days. It's inevitable, right? So you're going to need something to constantly remind you who you're going to be in the future.
And you feel like that works for you?
100%. I've had that vision board, and I've been able to conquer goals. My biggest dream was having a family. I didn't grow up with a dad. My mom didn't grow up with a dad. So for me, it's like I wanted to break that cycle. Right. So, and now, as you can see, I have a baby boy, right? And that's my biggest dream. And so that was number one. Number two is to play professional football, right? You have the NFL, the CFL, and you have these other leagues, but the constant ones is NFL and CFL. That's 41 teams, 41 jobs in the whole world. So I had that vision board right there. And it's like, yes, there's 41 jobs and there's thousands of us, but there's some way I'm going to find a way to get there, right? And that vision board kept me on track, right? So far I've been able to accomplish my 2 biggest dreams, and I'm still living them right now. And for me, it's been big because of the vision board has kept me accountable.
Last question for me. You talked about, family coming up, seeing everything, right? Being able to experience. Talk about having that support, right? It can't be hard. It's, going place to place and going with all these different teams, right? You have your family and talk about that and having the support behind them.
It's key, and there's a saying, show me your friends and I'll show you your future, right? And my girl, who's sometimes all the time, and there's actually a video of her going viral right now that I made of her on TikTok because she's actually coaching the boys soccer team. She's the interim head coach right now, and in that video you see her just motivating the boys as we ended up going into double overtime, we ended up going to PKs, we won. But a lot of people, that's the first time they're seeing. A lot of times, this is the first time a lot of people they're seeing my girl motivate and coach in a big platform like that, right? But for me, it's like I've been experiencing that since 2015, and I believe if it's not sports, in order if you want to achieve any type of dream, you have to have a good circle of friends, accountability, or your partner, because they're the ones that you hang around with the most, right? So you're going to be the average of that person. So if they're energetic, they're motivating, they're going to rub that off on you, vice versa.
Well, I think we have exceeded our timeline here with the little one. I really appreciate you juggling everything and coming on. I know everyone's going to be happy. Make sure he waves goodbye there.
Yes. I appreciate you. Y'all have a good one. If anyone has any questions, don't hesitate to reach out on social media. I'm here to motivate, help out in any way that I can.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
You take care.
Special thanks again to Jim and Greg and Sergio for coming on, and of course, Sam and Michael as well. Thank you guys all so much for watching and listening today. I know it was a long episode. I do my best to time code everything so you can kind of hit it in pieces as you want. I hope you guys enjoy. It just always makes sense to me. Let's put everything together. People can, buffet style, pick and choose as they want throughout the week. Trying to upload 6 different things or whatever is a lot of work for me. So this is just record everything, put it. I hope it works for you guys. Like and subscribe. I would do anything to get to that 2,000 subscriber mark. Make sure the markcast.com/review, be part of that giveaway. I'll send you either the USFL merch or Markcast merch, whatever you want. But, God forbid, maybe the XFL store opens next week and you could get some XFL merch. But the markcast.com/review for that. Thanks, everyone, for listening and watching. Like and subscribe. We'll see you next time. Thanks.